9th, 2021 meeting of the Historic District Commission. We have our agenda here. Is that the first thing that we do? We look at the agenda and we say, are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move forward with this agenda.
Okay. Oh, and there's Anna in the waiting room. And now I'm going to back up and we're going to do the roll call.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Rockland.
Here.
Commissioner Quijano.
Here.
Commissioner Beeson. We couldn't hear you, John.
I'm here.
All right. Commissioner Ross. Commissioner, oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. We got to start over. You've got to say what city you're logging in from. Commissioner Rockland.
Here from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Quijano.
Here in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Beeson.
John Beeson from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Commissioner Ross.
Here from Detroit, Michigan.
Commissioner Epperson.
Here in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner White.
Here from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Commissioner Fortner. Commissioner Fortner is absent. Thank you. You have a quorum. And now if you want to hand the reins back to Anna, we can move on to, we're up to item D, Anna, audience participation.
Thank you, Commissioner Rockland, for taking over in my absence. So on item D, public comment, this is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. To comment on such other preservation matters, please call 877-853-5247 toll-free or 213-338-8477 and enter meeting ID pound 978-6401-4515. This information is also displayed on the meeting agenda and video feed. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. Please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Do we have any callers for public comment? Not seeing any indication of such. So I will close the public comment portion and move on to item E, unfinished business. There is no unfinished business. So on to hearings. Item F1, which is 108 Coke Avenue. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
Just let me share my screen with you. Okay. 108 Cook is on the is in the Old West Side Historic District, and this is an application for a Dte Gas Meter. This is a 1 3/4 story gable fronter that features a full front porch, a 2nd floor triple window, and it was the first new house built on John K. Avenue in 1916. The street name was obviously changed to Cook. That was in 1928. And the first occupant of the home was decorator Carl Link. It's one house in from the northwest corner of Cook Avenue and South Main Street. And the applicant is seeking HCC approval to install a gas meter on the east side elevation, 1 foot north of the southeast corner of the home. You can see Commissioner Rockland here from the review committee visit. He is approaching the corner of the home where the meter is proposed to be located. You can see that from the street, there's a lot of bushy things growing up along a fence line between the properties. And when we got there, we realized that there has already been a meter installed. So we know exactly where it will go because it's there already. On the pictures that were submitted, it was shown here closer to the front. Possibly they put this little extension here to get it away from the hose bib. I'm not sure, but the DTE folks can fill us in on that when it's their turn to talk. You can see that it is a post-mounted meter, and it's a couple feet back from where it was shown in the drawings on the front corner of the house. You can see meter location sign here right next to the downspout. Since it is very close to the front of the house, it does require HDC approval instead of staff. The application stated that the installer was unable to move the meter further back due to the current fuel line location, and that the meter manifold will have minimum visibility from the street due to existing shrubs. Okay, so from the Secretary of the Interior standards, the ones that most apply are numbers 2, 9, and 10. 2 says that the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Number 9 says new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Number 10 says that new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. From the guidelines for mechanical systems, it's recommended to install a completely new mechanical system if required for the new use so that it causes the least alteration possible to the building's floor plan, the exterior elevations, and the least damage to the historic building material. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, it's appropriate to attach mechanical equipment so historic fabric is not damaged or destroyed, to install mechanical equipment and wiring in locations on the roof, rear elevations, or in alleyways so they are not visible from the street, and using compatible screening around outdoor mechanical equipment such as vegetation and fencing. Not appropriate is to install new mechanical equipment systems or wiring in locations that change or destroy character-defining features and materials. So we've been through this many times with DTE. The only thing really here in question is the location of the meter. The post-mounted meters are an appropriate style. As you can see, there's only a single penetration through the wall of the house, which is good. So the only question here is whether the location is appropriate as built. That concludes staff's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Racklin was on the review committee. Were there any other commissioners? Commissioner Quijano, if you would both give us your staff report and recommendation, please.
Sure. Do you want to go, Commissioner Quijano?
Sure, thanks. I really don't have a whole lot more to add. Staff's report was very thorough, and the photos from our visit, I think, really tell of the condition. It's very close to the side fence there. It's just to the edge, the right edge of the photo. It's very tight space there, and from the sidewalk, benefit from the location of a pretty large tree trunk and some other vegetation there. So it's really not that visible from the right of way. Yeah, I think we're just standing right behind the tree if you were in the yard itself. So not much more to add there.
All right. Well, I agree with what's been said. I think that it's in a good spot. Just something obviously went wrong with the process where it got installed before we approved it. I'm glad that I like where it is because that would be much more awkward otherwise. But nothing more to report from the review committee for me.
Commissioners? Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record. And just note you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak on this topic if you have anything you'd like to add to the report.
Good
Hi,
evening.
this is Brian Balance with DTE Energy. I'm the general manager of the gas renewal program. It was my team that performed this work. My address is 14270 Schaefer, Detroit, Michigan. I'd just like to apologize to the committee. This was an oversight out in the field and it was a mistake. When we learned about it, or I learned about it, we immediately talked to the team about ensuring that all the paperwork was out in the field hands. I'm assured that this won't happen again.
Thank you, Brian. So we also have Kais. State your name and address for the record.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Kai Soares. I'm with Corby Energy. We're located at 6001 Schooner Drive in Belleville. I just following up with what Brian said, I agree that this was an accident. We apologize for that. I have nothing to add to the report, though. I think we put the fuel or the meter where we best could while minimizing the amount of fuel line to stay under the 10-foot rule. And I think we were kind of limited on options on that with this one. So we tried to put it in a place would be least inconvenient to the homeowner and least visible from the street. But I think that was covered pretty well in the report.
Thank you, guys. Looks like we also have Jamal Robertson. If you would just unmute and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. Jamal Robertson. I'm at 1321 Catalpa in Royal Oak. And I'm here on behalf of Molly Lumpert-Coy, who's the regional manager for Washtenaw County. She's out right now on medical leave. And as my colleagues have stated, well, first I want to thank the commission for their time this evening. And again, we also want to apologize for this issue and any inconvenience that it's caused. And, it's been stated that the situation occurred as a result of a miscommunication between the contractors in the field and their office staff. And as everyone has stated already, we don't have anything to add to the report.
And it looks like we have one more caller, Eric Curtis. If you could just also unmute your microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Yep. Hello, everybody. My name's Eric Curtis. I'm at 3190 Milford. So yeah, I'm just a supervisor. Just like everybody else said, it was just a mishap on us. We have a process and we just, dropped the ball on it. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Eric. One more, Prem, if you can state your name and address for the record. Prem Kavalath, if you could unmute and just state your name and address for the record.
Sorry, I'm Prem Kavalath, 2057 Castler Circle, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Our sincere apologies to the commission. It's an oversight from the field, and going forward, we'll make sure that such error doesn't happen again. Sorry for
Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us and giving us your comments. Appreciate it. Commissioners, do you have any questions for any of our applicant representatives? See any? We'll move on to the public hearing portion. This is an item for opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 108 Cook Avenue. You can make public comment by calling the number displayed on the screen and enter meeting ID 978-6401-4515. Alexis, do we have any callers?
We do not.
I will now close the public hearing portion of the application. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion on this application? Commissioner Quijano?
Thanks. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 108 Cook Avenue, a contributing property in the Old West Side, Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the north elevation, as installed, and shown in the application. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Quijano, seconded by Commissioner White. Commissioner Reckland.
Just a technicality, but it's the east elevation and the motion says north elevations.
Ah, right.
Scratch that east.
Switches.
And I don't have any other comments. Did everyone just drop off? What happened there? According to my Zoom screen, it looks like it's just us now. But anyway, I don't have more comments. It was nice for everyone to come and express their sincere apologies. This project has been going on for a very long time. I'm sure there's been turnover on the team, and I'm sure they have processes so this stuff doesn't happen, but it happened. So it's nice to see that they're committing to doing a better job at the meeting here. So they weren't here to hear that, but maybe they are here to hear that. They're not on my screen. I assume everyone's seeing the same thing as I am.
Yeah, I don't see them any longer.
Yes.
But I would second that statement as well. I appreciate that they all took the time to come make a statement and apologies and ensure that they're trying to get things back in order. So that's much appreciated. Anyone else have any other discussion items about the motion? Ready for a vote? All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. All of those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for required permits from the city before beginning your project.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to item F2 at 502 South First Avenue. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
This two-story hipped roof frame house is an Italianate cube, which first appears in city directories in 1888 as clerk August T. Sinke and his wife Sarah. Remained in the Sinke family until after 1940. The house has an elaborate full front porch with hipped roof, bracketed columns, and turned balustrade. The current owner restored the front porch, which had been in very poor condition, after receiving HTC approval in 1989. And in 1992, he received a certificate of appropriateness to replace 2 first-floor windows over the front porch with windows more closely matching the original size and location. House is located on the southwest corner of South First Street and West Jefferson Street, and the applicant is seeking HTC approval to install a gas meter on the north side elevation, 2 feet east of the northwest corner of the home. Here is the house. This is a lovely Italianate with a very cool cut stone foundation as well. And there's some leaded glass around. It's just a very unique house. You can see that, again, this was the other application where we got out to the site and DTE had already installed a meter here on the side of the house, which is a front of the house. So when you look around this property, there are limitations on where this meter could go. You can see that there's a staircase back here to go up to the upper levels and a fairly narrow walkway. I'll show you more pictures in a moment. And so putting it onto the back of the house is less ideal. Here's a photo of the meter. It's a very strange one, and I'd like to hear more about it. I don't know what's going on with this meter. It's digital, and it's got this great big, I can't remember the name of this thing, but it's got one of those, and it's bigger than usual, and it doesn't look like the one that was in the application. This is the rear walkway, and on the other side of the house, if we had asked them to put it on the other back corner, you can see that there is a roof here over a stairwell that's going down into a basement stair, and it goes all the way to the back of this bump out. There's a photo of it in the snow. This is the back corner of the house right about here. So this wouldn't be a good place for a meter on this side either, and gas lines. This is the back where this is right around the corner from the meter. This is the very narrow walkway. You need to get to the back door of this unit. And this is what's going on the other side. Proposed location, 2 feet from the rear corner of the house. The example of the meter that doesn't really match what's there. I've already read to you all of the standards and guidelines, and I'm not going to go through them again, but let me just see if there's any comment here on, let's see, that says the meter manifold cannot be placed on the south or west side of the home due to existing stairwells, unable to move it to another location and maintain less than 10 feet of fuel line. And the homeowner has insisted that the meter be placed in the proposed location. So again, already installed. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the meter. But that's it for the staff report. I don't have anything else to add.
Good evening, Joe Brian Balance. That meter there is what we call an AL 800 meter. That is strictly volume in need of gas by the customer. So my understanding of what happened here was the application was provided with a typical residential size meter. And when the employees came to do the work, there was much more gas usage in this dwelling. It obviously looks like a 2-family flat, and it's probably feeding and supplying gas to the entire building and probably has a lot of BTU usage. But that's strictly the size of meter that is needed to supply gas adequately, volume-wise, to the residents.
Thank you for that clarification, Brian. Commissioner Rockland and Quijano on the review committee, can you give your report and recommendation?
Sure. Yeah, so this yeah, it's another tough one to locate. It's very visible from the sidewalk. I mean, it's just, there's no denying it. It's not in a ideal location, but like all of these that we've been through, it's like, is it in the least, the least bad location? And, based on everything that you heard in the staff report, it seems like it is, based on being on the site and seeing everything. And there's that, the meter is basically where it is inside, and they can only move it so far, and they can't move it to that walkway because it's a walkway. And so this is really, unfortunately, where it seems like it's gonna go, and the owner is asking it to be there too, which obviously is a factor. Yeah, it's just one of those, it's very visible. And because it's such a big meter and just kind of unusual, it doesn't disappear as well as, sort of the things that you're used to seeing in the neighborhood. So it's just another factor, but I think it's kind of irrelevant. It's kind of the least bad, it seems like, of all the options.
I would agree with that. And similar to the last one, it's pretty straightforward application and well described in the staff report and by Commissioner Rockland. So I do not have any additional information to add.
Thank you. Do any other members from the applicant team from DTE or Corby Energy have anything to add to the staff report or review committee reports?
No, again, I'll just apologize for the poor communication to the staff. But I think going forward, we're back aligned and on the same page.
I do apologize for the inconvenience, commissioners. So we will going forward make sure that you are well informed and get approval before we do that. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions for the applicant? Not seeing any, so I will move on to the public hearing portion. This will give an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about the application at 502 South First Avenue. Alexis, do we have any callers?
We do not. I would remind anyone listening or watching that you can press *9 on your phone, or you can use the feature to raise your hand to ask to speak.
Seeing no other indication, I will move on. I will close the public hearing portion. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Beeson.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 502 South First Street, the contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a gas meter on the north elevation 2 feet from the northwest corner of the house as shown in the application. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for mechanical equipment and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for mechanical systems.
Support.
By Commissioner Beeson, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? Seeing any? So if we're all ready for a vote, all of those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All of those opposed, please say no.
No.
The motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning.
Thank you so much, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
On to item F3, 121 East Liberty. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
You will probably recognize this storefront. We've had it before us a couple times in the last couple of years. This is a new storefront in a non-contributing building at 121 East Liberty. It was originally built in 1897 or earlier, but as a 2-story building, but there was a fire in the 50s and the upper story was taken off. In 2020, staff approved HDC application for removal of the enameled steel panels that you may remember on this store and the one to the right. And in March of 2021, the HDC approved this new storefront in brick that you see here. This application is for a projecting sign above the storefront display window. Here's another view. This is the sign that is proposed, and you can see it's a sort of a triangle mounted against the wall with brackets. They do indicate that it's to be mounted into the masonry joints, not through the bricks. The sign is 4 feet tall and 33 inches wide on a panel, though it only takes up a footprint of 24 inches wide. And it will be a minimum of 10.5 feet to the bottom of the sign. You can see that it's close to these soldier courses, these trim bands here. And we counted bricks when we were out there, and this seems pretty close. This might be slightly underrepresented, the sign height, but it's really quite proportionate to the storefront in staff's opinion. When we were there, there had been lighting proposed that didn't meet the city's new outdoor lighting code. So the applicant came back on Monday after the review committee with a new lighting proposal. It's very small fixtures that would be mounted right to junction boxes that go through the mortar joints. 2 of them aim downward on either side of the sign. And these fixtures do meet the outdoor lighting requirements for light levels, color spectrum, things like that. So they would like these included in this application for consideration. They are pretty minimal, as you can see. They're only a little more than 4 inches square. And for signs from the Secretary of Interior standards, I read to you number 9 already. From the guidelines for storefronts, it's not recommended to introduce a new design that's incompatible or to use inappropriately scaled signs or signs that obscure, damage, or destroy remaining character-defining features of the historic building. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for Signs, it's appropriate to install signage that's compatible and that is subordinate to the overall building composition and aligns with others along the commercial block face. It's not appropriate to install signs that have interior illumination or are backlit. So looking along the storefronts, there's just a big box sign next door this way. Looking the other direction, I'm sorry, it got cut off here. The next sign down is a very similar triangular sign on the Ruse Roast coffee shop, which is 2 doors down from this one. And it's actually a pretty similar in size and placement. The sign bands don't align here exactly, you can see, but it is appreciated that this sign doesn't go any higher than the stone band on the storefront next door. So staff does think that the placement is also compatible, and staff does recommend approval, and that's it for my report. Thank you.
Ms. Fetcher. Commissioners Quijano and Reckland, will you please give your report and recommendation?
I remember. Yes, I tend to agree with staff's report here. I think most of the time spent just trying to check the coursing and verify the height and that it would be compatible with the adjacent storefronts and in scale with the other signs, variety of signs that are on that portion of the block. Be very similar to the Ruse Rose projecting sign. And I do appreciate that it's placed, located above that soldier course. Seems logical for a traditional storefront design. Not much more to add to that.
I agree with what I've heard so far, and it just is, it seems like a well-placed sign. The size of it seems compatible, especially so since it's the similar, design as the sort of unique Ruse Rose sign. Everything seems to line up pretty well. So there were no issues there.
Commissioners. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to speak. If you have anything you'd like to add to the staff report or review committee report.
I am Dave Murphy. I'm the architect on the project. I'm at 3411 Geddes Road. No, as usual, Jill did a fantastic job of doing the staff report, and I have nothing to add.
Thank you. We have a D. Moeller.
Hey there, this is Doug Moeller at 6580 Spring Meadow Lane in Salem Township, and I have nothing additional to add. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I have one quick question. So the applicant, so what's gonna, for the two new light fixtures, what's the finish color for those elements?
Those are black.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Reckland.
My question's also about the light fixtures. I just want to make sure that they meet the lighting ordinance. I could imagine certainly if they're pointed straight down, they would meet the lighting ordinance. I want to make sure that they're they're shown at an angle. And I just want to make sure that when you mount those at an angle, that they still meet the ordinance. And I don't know if that's a question for the applicant or just a general question.
Well, I can talk to it a little bit. I think the idea of those lights are to shine directly on the sign. So are you concerned more about the light levels at the property line? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, like the light trespass,
Yeah.
if they're angled, is the light polluting where it's not supposed to be polluting, basically, based on the ordinance?
Yeah, I don't think they will, because they will be directed directly at the sign. So I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Is there any photometric information provided for the light?
I think we did submit a photometric. Jill, was that in this the package I sent over?
There's, hang on a sec, I'm trying to pull up the whole package because I didn't print that out since it came in late.
Yeah, thank you for getting this in there for me.
Yeah. Regardless, commissioners, you're not really, I mean, you're allowed to consider the outdoor lighting ordinance, but others will be actually looking at that when they apply for electrical permits. So that is a review that someone will do at some point, probably an electrical inspector. But I will add the caveat that if you ever have concerns about new lights that are installed, then you should let us know. Like when you see them, if you see giant, enormous light spillage out onto the sidewalk from a new sign, let us know, and we can follow up on that too. But I do appreciate that you're thinking about that, because this is a brave new world for all of us.
Thanks for the clarification. Any other questions? I will open the public hearing portion for this item at 121 East Liberty. Just a reminder to press *9 on your phone to raise your hand or press indicate doing so on the screen. Alexis, do we have any callers?
We do not. Anyone listening, remember you can press *9 on your phone, or you can raise your hand on the Zoom feature to speak at a public hearing.
We'll close the public comment portion. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Ross.
Oh, okay. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 121 East Liberty Street, a contributing property in the Main Street Historic District, to install a new non-illuminated business sign, mounted in mortar joints as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building. And the surrounding area meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for signs and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. Particular standard 9 and the guidelines for storefronts. Ms. Thatcher, should I also add in the 2 light fixtures in that motion?
I think if you just struck non from illuminated, if you just made the first line an illuminated sign as proposed, I think it'd be fine.
Great. Oh, yeah, thank you. So yes, so I will remove non from that motion.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Ross, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there discussion on the motion? I think this is a pretty straightforward application. As both commissioners indicated, I think the placement above the soldier course is appropriate, and appreciate that attention to detail. I think it seems sized appropriately for the facade that it's indicating its signage for. So I think this is, like I said, pretty straightforward. Commissioner Rockland, you have anything to add?
Yes, I just wanted to also express appreciation for just the simplicity of it all, and the notes that say that it's going to be secured through mortar joints, and also that there's no visible conduit showing for the lights. I mean, I just think that shows that the designer here is really thinking about the details and expressing them to us. So it's just appreciated it's sort of stating the obvious, but it's not always obvious, and it's appreciated that it's stated. So it's good.
Are we ready for vote? Second, all of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All of those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Now on to item F4, 224 Murray Avenue. Will you please give the staff?
Okay, 224 Murray is in the Old West Side Historic District. It's a 1 3/4 story gable fronter. Features 1/1 windows, a screened-in front porch, and a hipped roof. A gabled wall dormer on the south elevation, and a large rear addition. It was first occupied in 1914 by Warren Berkeley, a clerk at F.W. Gross. It's on the west side of Murray Avenue, south of West Washington and north of West Liberty. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to install a solar array of black-on-black panels on the south-facing roof of the house. So here we are from the front, typical Murray Avenue gable fronter. It's got the little gabled wall dormer on the south facing elevation. And then you can see that there's a large addition. This is all addition roof with this second gable, and there's a flat roof. I'm sorry, a pitched roof behind that, beyond that. So this proposal is to add solar panels right here and right here, and then more on the back where you can't possibly see them from the street. Here's the layout. We've got 3 panels, 18 inches from the roof ridge on the front. So those will be up pretty high up here on this slope. 2 panels, 18 inches from the ridge right here. And then 8 panels on the back portion of the roof. This is a very thorough application. They're not all in the slideshow here, but there's a lot of information, which is always appreciated. The panels are the correct type. They're I like this Invisimount mounting system. It seems to be very low profile, which is great. This roof is not black, but it's a dark gray color. So as with most solar panels, they'll be visible, but I really don't think they'll be obvious. This will be the one that's the most visible. But again, we're about a good 25 feet from the front porch of the house. And you can't always see that. It's only from certain angles. Otherwise, this house blocks it, or this house itself blocks the view of that little roof. The standards that best apply are 2, 9, and 10, all of which I've read to you tonight. The Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for roofs recommend identifying, retaining, and preserving roofs and their functional and decorative features that are important in defining the overall historic character of the building. For mechanical equipment, it's appropriate to provide adequate structural support for new mechanical equipment. For solar panels from the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, it's appropriate to install mechanical and service equipment on the roof related to the solar units and their related devices, so that they are inconspicuous from the public right-of-way and do not damage or obscure character-defining features. For sloped roof installations, the panels should be parallel to and within 8 inches of the roof surface. It would not be appropriate to mount solar panels and their related devices on primary elevations or roofs that face the primary elevation or on planes that are highly visible from the street view. This location has the highest impact on the historic character of the historic building, and all other options should be thoroughly explored. So again, these panels face toward the front, but I don't consider this to be a main elevation. That it is secondary, it is on an addition, and staff believes that this work is appropriate and that the layout works well on this house. Thank you.
Well, Commissioners Keano and Rockland, please give your review committee report and recommendation.
Sure. I mean, this is the view to look at, basically. This is all you need to know. You won't see the ones in the back for sure. The ones that are going to be on the addition, the addition is kind of already obscuring that side gable, and I kind of like that the plane of those panels kind of will disappear behind that gable. So that's all fine. And then you've got 3 more that are going to be up on that on the side of the front gable there, and you'll see them. The roof sort of has like a dark greenish gray, and they're black on black, and we've seen them, and they do kind of disappear, and then if you're looking for them, you will see them. I think the square ones disappear a little more than, or the rectangular kind of shape is a little better. In this case, we have like kind of a stepped pattern, like an L shape, but that's just what fits on the roof. So I understand that. So yeah, I think this is kind of a typical solar panel installation. Is one of the more typical ones that we've seen, where it's like, yep, you're going to see them, but it's removable and it's solar panels. So that seemed like my conclusion.
I agree with the information that's been stated and presented so far. And there are a number of homes on Murray that have solar panels. I think we actually reviewed one a couple meetings back. And I think this one is presented in a similar manner. You know, they're placed in the most effective and useful locations. This particular street view, you'll see them, but the product that's being proposed is very simple and clean, low profile, as Ms. Thatcher stated. And it's work that's reversible and won't damage the historic structure. So I think it's a fair proposal.
Well, would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record. Note that you have up to 5 minutes to speak if you have anything you'd like to add to the staff report or review committee report.
Commissioner Epperson, it seems like no one from the applicant's team has attended the meeting, or at least their Zoom name does not match their application name.
Okay. If you are the applicant for 224 Murray Avenue and you would like to make any comment or have any questions for the commissioners or add anything to that staff report, please press *9 on your phone or indicate on your Zoom screen to raise your hand. Like we have anybody. So we'll move on to the public hearing portion. Again, if you would like to make any kind of public comment for 224 Murray, please press *9 or indicate using the icon on your Zoom screen to raise your hand. Any callers indicating? Not seeing any. So I will close the public hearing portion. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Kehan.
Thanks. All right. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 224 Murray Avenue, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install a black-on-black solar array as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for roofs, energy efficiency, and mechanical systems, as well as the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines, particularly as they pertain to solar installations.
Support.
By Commissioner Quijano, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? Seen any indication? I'll just reiterate, I think what was said before and in a couple previous. I think this application was really well put together. I appreciate that the drawings are actually very highly detailed. It gives all the dimensions to where the size of the panels, but also where they'll be located on the roof. And that's something that's pretty critical, something that we like to know and look at as we review these. And also the low profile is a nice touch for this application. I think overall it's pretty clear and straightforward. So it's appreciated. Looks like we're ready for a vote. All of those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All of those opposed, please say no. Your motion carries. Your application has been, the motion carries. The application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project. Move on to the next item. F5 has actually been withdrawn by the applicant. So we will move on to item F6, 419 North State Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
This imposing 2 3/4 story house was built circa 1868 by the mother-daughter team of Honora and Ellen Morse as a boarding house. The Morses built many rooming houses for students on North State Street, including Minnie's Co-op at 307 North State. Before Ellen died at the age of 87, she donated 419 North State, this building, to the Sisters of Mercy, who started St. Joseph Mercy Hospital there. In 1919, the house became the Anna Botsford Bach Home for old ladies until it moved to 1422 West Liberty in 1927, where it remained until 2003. After that, the house was converted to apartments, which it remains today. It's at the northwest corner of North State Street and East Kingsley. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to remove and rebuild the front porch while reusing the round tapered porch columns. Non-original materials would be removed and replaced with wood, and original wood features that are deteriorated beyond repair will be replaced with matching materials in matching dimensions. An existing side roof over a basement stairwell next to the front porch would be replaced with one more compatible with the historic porch configuration. Here's the house. Very cool house it is. The porch has quite a few non-original materials on it right now. You can see that the house is wrapped in aluminum siding, as is much of the porch. The trim, the columns you can see are the original tapered round columns, though this one here on the corner is missing. The roof is a very low slope. It's a flat roof, which isn't flat because it has a very low pitch. But the part of the proposal here is to rebuild the entire roof structure to put a hip in it. So the steepness of the roof, it says on the application, would not change, but it would be hip so it would shed water more adequately. There's damage, that's presumably why this porch post was taken out. The water has gotten inside of the roof structure and is rotting things out. There may or may not be guardrails. There probably are guardrails behind the aluminum here. I'd like to hear from the applicant exactly what his plan is for these, because the written portion said that they would just be removing the aluminum and reusing these. But the property owner at the site visit indicated that it was more likely that they would replicate them and build new ones that meet the required height for commercial buildings for guardrails. You can see that the skirting down here is rotted out, and there's lots of aluminum wrapped stuff here. The concrete steps would go away and be replaced with wood steps, which would be much more appropriate. The floor, the decking is in poor condition. The roof of the porch is the only time I've ever seen this in Ann Arbor is aluminum siding on the roof. It's not really known what's under there, but they were proposing to pull it out and replace it with beadboard because it is also had water damage. You can see that on the side here, there is a staircase going down. Maybe I'm just not quite to it yet. Here we go. This is that classic, let's build a staircase down to a basement apartment right in the front. We saw one of these across the street earlier in the year that had a similar problem. Fortunately, they've come up with a more appropriate design for this one and are asking before they build it. They'd like to get rid of this corrugated stuff or plastic sheeting stuff and all of the pipe rails and this fiberglass stuff that's wrapping the sides, and just replace it with something that's very simple, but a better system for keeping people from falling into the stairwell while allowing them to continue to use it. Here's a photo that the owner submitted with the application back from around the time that this was St. Joe's Hospital. You can really get a great idea here of what the porch looked like, and so they know just what they would have to do to replicate these railings, whether they're at this height or at the height required by commercial building code. And now we get into the plans. This is the site plan. Here's the existing porch roof with no hip. They get rid of that. They get rid of the concrete steps up at the front, and they'd demolish the side entry cover, put a new low slope hip roof on it. It wouldn't look any different from the street because the roof is up high enough that you can't even see it. Maybe from across the street if you looked really hard, but it's really not going to be very noticeable. And as you can see, it's just a very simple shed roof off the side with a round column that's not tapered and matching guardrails that are, these would have to be to code height since they're guarding a well. But I think that this works much better, and it is low key, and it doesn't really read as original. I don't think anybody would ever confuse that. We've got a new roof here with EPDM roofing, new foundation floor framing, tongue groove decking, new vertical lattice, new wooden stairs. There's a section drawing if anyone needs it. From the Secretary of Interior Standards, number 1 says a property will be used as it was historically or be given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. I've read to you numbers 9 and 10. From the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for entrances and porches, it's recommended to repair entrances and porches by reinforcing the historic materials. Repair will also generally include the limited replacement in kind with compatible suitable material of those extensively deteriorated or missing parts of repeated features with our surviving prototypes. So in this case, most of this front porch would be demolished permanently, but the historic porch columns would be reused, definitely. And I'm a little unclear on whether or not the guardrails would be reused. Not recommended is installing secondary service entrances that are incompatible in size and scale with the historic building or obscure, damage, or destroy character-defining features. Obviously, the HCC would not allow a new well like this to be dug in the front yard, but it's there. From building site, it's not recommended to introduce new construction that's visually incompatible or to remove a building. And no, we don't need that one. Sorry. So let me check my notes here, but staff is in favor of this. It is more extensive work than most porch rehabilitation projects, but the design is complementary and matches the original historic one, and it doesn't destroy any character-defining features of the house. So staff does recommend approval of this application. Thank you.
Commissioners Quijano and Rockland, please give your review committee report and recommendation.
Sure. Again, the staff report is quite thorough. There are a lot of pieces involved here, but I think it described the conditions and the proposal pretty clearly. There was a lot of discussion on site of just concerns of the owner being able to maintain properly the porch and clearing out all the non-historic and the aluminum siding on multiple surfaces. They're optimistic that it'll improve things moving forward and regarding the water issues, providing that minimal hip roof, I think will help. We also took note of a similar porch across the street that had a hipped roof over its porch, more visible than probably what we would have here, but nonetheless, it's not foreign to the neighborhood. What else? Talked about the concrete steps going away, and again, some work on the new sidewalk, which probably isn't really in our purview, but again, all focused on the water mitigation and any avoiding future issues there. So yeah, nothing much more to add beyond that.
Well, I agree with what's been stated so far. I think this is this project will really change the look of the house, and they've already done a mini porch restoration project around the corner. It's a corner house, and so the side porch has already been restored in a similar fashion. It's much smaller. And then so it's great that they're taking on the front porch now, and maybe they'll keep at it, because this is quite it's what was in the staff report, imposing. It's quite a house, and it's right on the corner, and the neighborhood in general, there's like kind of here and there. There's some restorations, but mostly, nothing's going to match this new front porch in the immediate neighborhood here. So it'll really change the look of the neighborhood. impactful project. And I have nothing more to add.
Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record. Note you have up to 5 minutes to speak. If you have anything you'd like to add to the staff report or review committee report.
Gordon Winther, 1993 West Liberty, Ann Arbor. I'm the husband of the manager of the LLC that owns the building. I really don't have anything to add. I'm more than happy to field any questions that anybody has or concerns that they have. And in regards to Jill's statement about the guardrails on the porch, we want to get them back looking the way that they did originally as much as possible, keeping in mind what the current code issues are in terms of height. But we want to restore that look back to it was in the picture that she showed you about the original building.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Quijano.
Yeah, just a clarification question. Hi, Gordon. I was looking in the packet. I don't see it in my packet, but I saw an elevation drawing, Jill, in your presentation that had the annotations calling out new elements. Yes, yeah, that one. Okay, so the for the stairwell covering, there's a note there that says new columns to match existing. So there's the text note there, although graphically that new column for the shed roof doesn't look exactly like it's not matching the existing. But then there's a side elevation drawing in the packet that we have, commissioners, that those columns are drawn to match the existing porch columns. So I just would appreciate clarification on what they're supposed to look like, the shed roof columns.
Would you like me to answer that?
Yes, please.
The plan that we had was to put columns there that match the design of the ones that are on the porch. They won't necessarily be the same size because of what it is that it's going to be, where it's going to be placed and what it's going to be holding up, but it would have the same look. The contractor that I have has assured me that we're going to be able to locate columns to replace the one in the front corner that is no longer there. Mm-hmm. That would have the same look for the columns that would be around that stairwell also.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So just to follow up on Commissioner Keano's question, so that will be a round wood column, both two?
That is correct.
Gotcha, okay.
Commissioner Reckler.
Hi, Gordon. I'm just curious about the egress ladder that's on the front facade. I'm wondering if you can comment on that, and I assume it's staying, but it's just not called out. So is that ladder staying?
It has to. It's a fire fire escape issue. I guess that would be a question to ask the city in terms of that. That was it's existing. It was there when the building was purchased back in 2012. It's just remained there. We didn't remove it at all. You can see that there's a side fire escape that goes up to that same apartment that that ladder is connected to. But we didn't have any plans for removing it. It wouldn't break my heart to remove it, but it just wasn't part of the plan for the porch. There's been a lot of conflicting information about, at least in my view, in terms of what's necessary to have this being a rental property. we are going to be going through another rental inspection on the 17th with the city. I guess we could pose the question to the inspector at that time concerning that. But again, it's been there since we've owned the building. I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I was just asking because I know you're rebuilding the roof. There's going to be a hip. I can't tell from the pictures how far down that ladder goes. And anyway, if it was conflicting, then I was wondering, well, what are you going to do with it if it does?
The ladder will be above the hip.
Okay. Thank
Ms.
you.
Thatcher, you comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Gordon, I generally direct my fire escape questions to Mike Lemieux, who works for the building official. He's a plan reviewer. Mike always seems to have a handle on what's required for egress requirements. And there's a decent chance that that ladder is no longer required. And we would love to have you take it down if it's not, but good to know that you're just, it's not really a part of this application, but I'll just say to you out loud that if you ever want to take it off, just take it off.
Well,
that would be appropriate.
I am familiar with Mr. Lemieux.
Okay.
From past inspections. Again, I can pose the question when the rental inspection takes place in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And if it is something, I guess it just depends on what would be involved in taking it out and what would have to be mitigated in order to do that. I have a feeling that it would take the removal of a lot of aluminum siding that's up there to be able to do that, but we could certainly look at that.
That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, commissioners? We'll now open the public hearing portion for this item at 419 North State Street. Just a reminder to press *9 on your phone to electronically raise your hand, or indicate using the icon on your Zoom screen, the raise your hand button. Alexis, do we have any callers?
Do not. Anyone calling, I'll remind you, you can press *9 or raise your hand on the Zoom feature.
No one's indicating, so I will close the public hearing portion. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Beeson.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 419 North State Street, a contributing property in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District, to remove and rebuild the front porch and stair roof as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design arrangement and material to the building and the surrounding area and meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for entrances and porches, additions, and building.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Beeson, seconded by Commissioner White. Is there discussion on the motion?
I guess I would just like to commend this applicant. Even though it's a rental property, it's really excellent that rather than kind of repairing the deteriorated porch, kind of using the same inappropriate materials, that he did his research and is really proposing to come back with something that's going to elevate this property, and hopefully as siding deteriorates, etc., windows, hopefully the applicant will owner will move forward with replacing kind of according to the historic appearance. So I support this application.
Commissioner Rocco?
Just want to second what Commissioner Ross just said, because I agree 100%. And it was just so refreshing to hear Gordon at the review committee meeting talk about how, he was so excited to restore this porch to its former glory. And I'm just hoping that, his enthusiasm is going to spread throughout the Fourth Ward there, because it was really great to hear.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll have, I hope it'll have a big impact, because I think this will really, bring the property back up to what it, will help in bringing the property back up to what it once was, that existing photo is great to see and great to look at, and that the owner is putting the effort in to rebuild the porch and to higher standards is really appreciated. I think it'll look really nice. Thank you. Move on to a vote. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project.
I appreciate your help. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gordon.
On to item F7. Is that right? 245 Murray Avenue. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the stacker?
Right, 245 Murray is a 1 3/4 story end gable cottage, which features a half-width centered front porch and shallow eaves. It has a very large rear addition. All of the windows have been replaced, and several window openings on the original part of the house have been enlarged. The first occupant was William Collins, a driver for Ann Arbor Home Bakery in 1911. House is located on the east side of Murray Avenue, north of West Liberty Street and south of West Washington Street. The applicant is seeking HCC approval to enlarge 2 windows, one in either gable, by the addition of flanking side light windows. So this is a very interesting property, a very interesting house to visit. It was built, it was built 1911. I believe this was, I can't remember if this is the beginning end or the ending end of Murray, but you can see that it has a similar neighbor that's the same proportions at least. I believe that the neighboring house, the green one, has many more original characteristics than this one. You can see that the porch has been completely replaced. It's a cement base now. It's probably been shrunk down. It probably used to be full width. These windows, there wouldn't be pairs of historic windows, even if they had double hungs in them on the front elevation. That would be highly unusual. So I believe that a window was added to each of these already. You can see that there's an addition that's higher than the roof ridge, and the house has aluminum siding. The windows in the gables, neither of them are completely on center, which is a little bit unusual also. You can see that the neighboring house has this sort of salt box roof or cat slide roof going off of the back, which this one may have had a very similar roof before the addition was put on, but the windows are soundly in the center of the gable. This one, it's more pronounced. It's quite a bit back. It's very close to where the back wall of this room would have originally been. You can see here the addition and how it ties into the original roof, which has been truncated here. On this side, there's a triple window. It's presumed that there was a single or possibly a larger, maybe a picture window there, but certainly not a triple window. And you can see that all of the windows have been replaced by casements. So there is very little historic fabric left on this house. This is the other side. You can see these 2 windows. Unfortunately, there's some weeds in the way here, but these 2 windows are not quite aligned. This one is centered on the gable. This one is not. It's just slid over a few inches. So I have no proof, but I suspect that these windows in the upper floor were both moved slightly when the addition was put on, probably to facilitate the interior wall system, whatever they built onto the back of the house. I also believe that the front porch is not original, and that neither of the pair of windows on the front are original, or the triplicate window on the other side. I'm going into detail on all of this because I think that there's a decent argument to be made that, well, it's certainly a charming cottage and it fits in well in the neighborhood. I'm not convinced that this is a contributing historic structure any longer. Really quite a bit of things have been moved and muddled, and the historic record is sort of missing. But you can think about that as we go on. So here's the proposal. This is the north side elevation. Here's that triple window. Here's the existing window, and they'd like to flank it with two 14-inch windows on either side. The reason is because the owners of the house recently moved out of this house and rented it out. They owned two properties. COVID hit. They needed to occupy the other house. And before they had a rental housing inspection, they rented the house. And then the rental housing inspector came in later and said, there's not enough light and ventilation in the two upstairs bedrooms on this old part of the house. So the two ways that you can fix that are to make the windows bigger, or three ways: make the windows bigger, add additional windows, or add skylights. The applicant can tell you about the skylights, but she wasn't able to get a hold of a contractor that could actually do the work until spring or summer of 22. So instead, she's proposing to put two 14-inch windows on the sides. The glass dimension is 16 inches, which probably makes these windows 20 inches. It would be just a guess. She only had the glass measurement, and this is on the other side. Same thing. Existing is one window. Flanking windows are drawn on. This is from the interior. There's not really any historic material left here, so you can't really tell if this is a historic location for this window or not. When they put in the casements, these moldings were replaced with more standard moldings. There's another photo, close-up of the one on the north elevation. And there's the one on the south. You can see how it's not really aligned with this one, and it's a little bit off center from the gable. Strange that this one would be off center going one direction and the other one would be off center going the other direction. Again, not saying that that's proof that things were moved. It's just an oddity of this house. There's information on the new windows, which are American Craftsman by Ply Gem. I'm not sure what the material is. I didn't look that up. Maybe the applicant can fill us in on that. From the Secretary of the Interior Standards, I've read to you number 1 and 2 and 9 and 10. From the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for windows, recommended is designing and installing additional windows on rear or non-character defining elevations if required by the new use. Not recommended is introducing a new design that's incompatible with the historic character of the building. Not recommended also is changing the number, location, size, or glazing patterns of windows through cutting new openings, blocking in windows, and installing replacement sash, which does not fit the historic window opening, removing or radically changing windows, which are important in defining the historic character of the building, so that as a result, the character is diminished. From the guidelines for district or neighborhood setting, it's not recommended to introduce new construction that's visually incompatible or that destroys historic relationships. From the health and safety guidelines, it's recommended to identify the historic building's character-defining features, spaces, finishes, so that code-required work will not result in their damage or loss. Also complying with health and safety codes, including seismic codes, in such a manner that character-defining spaces, features, and finishes are preserved. Now, let me get back up to the photographs here. I don't have much else to add, but the HCC really needs to decide whether the proposed windows are appropriate or whether they're visually incompatible or otherwise do not meet the design guidelines. That's the route to go if you believe that this is a contributing historic structure. I'm sorry to sort of be springing this on you at the meeting because that wasn't part of the application or the staff analysis. But again, in looking at this house more closely, I really don't believe that it's a contributing historic structure, in which case adding the windows might be just fine. But that would be an additional determination that you would need to make. You would do that by altering the suggested motion, just to instead of saying issue a certificate of appropriateness to the contributing property to a non-contributing property. But again, I leave that entirely up to you to consider. And that is it for the staff report. Thank you very much.
Ms. Thatcher. I guess just a point of clarification on that last part regarding contributing and non-contributing.
Mhm.
I know in the past when we've had that discussion, there's been an entire application or a motion that the structure would be changed from contributing to non-contributing status. Is that a process that we need to
It's not a
discuss or go
different-
through?
Yeah, it's
Go ahead.
not a different process. The last time it came up, they went about the application in a different way, which was to ask for the determination first about whether it was contributing or not. That was not the question that was asked here. It was assumed that this was a contributing structure, and so the property owners are asking if they can add the windows to a contributing structure. But when I got out there and looked at it, said, this doesn't really strike me as a contributing structure anymore, even though it fits in really well. It's just very compatible. But again, it's entirely up to you guys whether or not you even consider such a question tonight. You can just leave it alone if you think it's a contributing structure, or you could take it up if you are so inclined. But there doesn't have to be any special process or anything.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners Rockland and Quijano, would you please give your review committee report and recommendation?
Is it my turn?
Oh, I've lost track here.
You too. Okay. I will go. Yeah, so we did spend quite a bit of time at the review committee. We certainly looked at the windows on the sides and the gables, and then we did look at the entire structure as a whole. Well, can I just ask the chair, like, do you want us to get into that, or do you want me to just stick my report to the windows? I mean,
No, I think it's fair to give your assessment of the structure overall, because I think it does impact,
the windows.
what is there
Overall,
is going to impact some of that configuration, I think.
Okay. So I am coming to the same conclusion that Ms. Thatcher is coming to, just in terms of, is it contributing or not? I guess we'll see if that makes a difference. But I guess it's three things for me. It's the porch that's gone, it's the windows that are gone, and then it's the addition that's there. And so it seems like those three things together, to me, like the character defining features aren't there, and then the historic integrity is just lacking, since they're not there, and then the addition is there, it just all sort of disappears, and it's just, there's nothing left, unfortunately. I will also agree, though, it does kind of fit in nicely with the neighborhood, even though the additions, I don't need to get into the details, but it does sort of fit in a way. Once you take a closer look at the porch being small and then the windows being large, it does have this sort of awkward structural weight on the windows that you wouldn't really expect. It's sort of the mullions of the windows kind of fool you into being posts in a way in this photo, but those are window mullions. They're not structural posts, and there's not structure hidden in there. I don't think that gives you the clue that it's, it doesn't have that ease of a historic building where you can just follow everything down to the ground and where the load paths and all that. Anyway, the windows, I would say that if it is a contributing structure, then to me it would be kind of this borderline discussion about, okay, well, those windows are sort of in the front of the building. They're asking for changes to it. But those changes are minimal, and they're not impacting the window. They're next to the window. So you can definitely see both both windows from the sidewalk. It's visible. I think that what's being proposed is, maybe borderline within the standards for a contributing building. But then being on site and looking at it, it seems like what is being proposed is reasonable and a way to solve this issue for renting this, within the standards. So I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah, I agree with staff's report and Commissioner Rockland's report. It is an interesting situation we're reviewing here. But in terms of other observations that we made on site, it was mentioned, I believe by staff, that the siding, it's an existing aluminum siding. So we were wondering, how these new window openings would be, how that would interface with the siding. How would that all work out? Is there more work that would be involved related to that, which was not clear in the application? But I agree. I think the decision really hinges upon further discussion here of whether this is contributing or non-contributing. So I'm interested to hear what the other commissioners have to say about that.
Thank you. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to speak if you have anything you'd like to add to the staff report or review committee report.
Claudia Delp, and we're the owners of 245 Murray Avenue. I guess I don't have a lot to add other than if there are any other questions. We're just trying to, comply with the rental association as far as lighting and ventilation.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Hello?
I do. So
okay.
The materiality of the window, I feel like I've seen that brand or that line before. So I feel like it is a vinyl window. So this is to the applicant if there's any confirmation on that.
Our contractor was going to match exactly what was existing there. And I believe that it was, the vinyl, and, make it as seamless as possible while putting the windows in.
Okay. And those windows will be fixed. They won't be crank out operable windows.
Yes.
Okay.
No. They're currently the windows that are in there are crank out, but those will not be.
I have, I guess, a question. Is there, I don't know, maybe you can just give a little bit of information as to why, actually, two questions. There's an image on the back, I think it's at the south facade of the rear of the building of one of those windows. Is there any proposed work for that window on the rear elevation? It didn't appear to be in the packet and given the quantity of the two, but I just want to be sure. That one, yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we kind of have a bad internet connection. I didn't quite catch that.
Is there work proposed for the window on the rear elevation? Yes.
That's the side, Commissioner Everson.
Oh, that is the side. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the side
Okay,
to
thank
the
you.
south. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's
So
the
that
side
there's
to the north.
Okay, got it. I was confused by that additional structure. My, I guess, other question is, was there any consideration for just enlarging the window or to get the adequate light that's required, as opposed to adding 2 new openings on either side. Because in a sense, you'd already be enlarging that opening.
We had considered that and had thought that just putting in one big window would be probably not be approved, as opposed to putting in the smaller windows, that it would be more consistent with what we had.
Okay. And then do you need to add the 2 windows in order to meet the light and ventilation requirements? You need
Yes.
them on each side in order to do so.
Yes. Yes.
Those are all my questions, commissioners. If you have anything else.
So I actually have a
Rockland?
question. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Rockland.
You can go and I'll go after you.
So thank you. So this is a question actually directed to staff, just to understand the contributing versus non-contributing status. Ms. Thatcher, would you know offhand when this district was designated?
It was designated around 1980, 82.
Okay. And at that time, was each house or each property within the district specifically called out as contributing and non-contributing?
It wasn't at that time. That status was designated in 2006 when a resurvey was done of the Old West Side Historic District.
Okay, and so the 2006 survey, what was the determination at that point?
That it's contributing.
Okay, and was there any change done to the house after 2006?
No.
Okay, so it was identified in 2006 as contributing.
Yeah, pretty much the way it is today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess I would just, so typically, these kind of older, like back in the day, early, they were less forgiving than we are now. And I guess like just going out to the rest of the commission, I'm going to defer to the recommendation made by the survey. And I'm going to, in my mind, this building is contributing based on the survey. And the fact that at the time of the survey, the house sat in the current appearance.
And just to shed a little more light on that, I'm not trying to disparage that resurvey or anything, but since it was a resurvey, that designation came from a consultant and not from a study committee per se, if that makes sense. So a consultant was hired to go through and do a reconnaissance level resurvey and then write up the survey sheets and say contributing, non-contributing for each. And then as a group, they were accepted by the HDC and sent off to the SHPO for approval. There was not a study committee appointed. Okay. And the SHPO accepted that and said that was fine.
Right. I mean,
it's a small district. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I find that pretty legitimate if it's a, experience, a real consultant, historic preservation consultant, and it went out to the SHPO and the SHPO concurred and the commission approved it.
Yeah.
So that's just me. I don't speak for the body, but.
Good question. Commissioner Rockland?
There was a question on the table. I just wanted to get it out about the aluminum siding and how that is going to be. Can that just be explained by the owners, how they're planning on trimming the new windows?
It won't look any different trim-wise.
It won't look any different trim-wise than it is, than it does right now. It would be the same type of trim, the same everything. Our contractor assured us of that.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any additional questions?
Actually, I guess I have one more question for Ms. Thatcher, being, as you're kind of seated in the building department, planning department area. So for the sake of argument, let's say the commission denies this and the applicant would have to look at maybe adding a skylight. Because there's, because they're required by code to add some sort of something to add more light or whatever. And if this couldn't happen until the summertime, I mean, would the building department, I mean, what would be the consequence of that? Do you know, Ms. Thatcher, would the building department?
Yeah, I'd have to ask rental housing what they would do with that. If the HDC said, no, you can't add windows, you have to add skylights, they would work with me and with the applicant to establish some sort of a timeline that's reasonable to get skylights in instead of windows.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I say something to the skylights.
Are you ready to vote?
It's usually the case that if the applicant is showing progress and has a contractor and has, dates lined up at some point in the future, that the process goes much better than if, there are other applicants that just don't want to do the work and don't want to pay for it to be done and want to drag it out as long as possible. And those are the ones where I see a lot more problems. But yeah, it would be up to the rental housing division to figure that out.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mrs. Delp, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
We had looked into the skylights, and in fact, Jill, you had given me 2 names of people that had worked with this historical society, and that was one of the options we had looked at. And one of them no longer does it because of the problems that, leaking and so on, and they've decided that they're just not doing skylights anymore. And the other one said, that's something that we can look at, but it wouldn't be until the spring or the summer. And at this point, since, a few months have passed, I don't know if we would be looking at into the fall or when, but it was something that we had looked into.
We'll now move on to the public hearing portion for this application. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 245 Murray Avenue. As a reminder, if there are any callers that would like to make public comment on this application, please press *9 on your phone or indicate using the icon on your Zoom screen to raise your hand. Do we have any callers?
Thus far, we do not.
We'll close the public hearing portion. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Rockland.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 245 Murray Avenue, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install narrow sidelight windows on both sides of the second floor gable windows facing north and south as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines, especially those for windows and safety codes, and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 1, 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for windows, neighborhood setting, and health and safety.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Rockland, seconded by Commissioner White. Let's see. Should we start our discussion on the contributing nature? Would commissioners like to discuss the contributing versus not contributing nature of the structure? Anyone want to start? Commissioner Rockland.
I mean, I don't know if we just talk about the windows, maybe we don't need to talk about that. I don't know, right? I mean, if everyone's, maybe it's okay to just talk about the windows first and then see how that is going.
Sounds good. So I am not convinced that the windows as proposed are meet the guidelines. I don't feel like there's enough information to indicate exactly what the full increase in light and ventilation is for the from the existing window to what needs to be added. We're told that they need the 2 side lights. We think in a more typical configuration that there would be potentially a window added to 1 side as opposed to 2. I think that the modification is not necessarily compatible with what with the window guidelines, and it's on both 2 visible facades toward the front of the structure. Now, whether or not we're going to say that portion is contributing, I think to me, I'm on the fence with that, and that the roof line is really dominant within the structure. The size, the footprint of the building is still pretty dominant in terms of it has, some features that I think define this house, and really we've mentioned a couple times that, or a couple commissioners have mentioned already that, it fits within its setting. There's site relationship that looks like it belongs. Again, I think that roof line is really important. I agree that the existing windows that are there aren't historic. We don't know whether or not those openings are in the original locations, and the porch obviously not contributing, but I don't think that the arrangement of the windows as proposed meets the guidelines.
Can I ask a clarification question of the applicant? Are these windows in the same bedroom, or are these windows in 2 different bedrooms?
It's 2 different bedrooms. One on each one. There's 1 bedroom on one side of the home, and then on the other side of the home. So we would be adding 2 windows to each bedroom.
Thank you.
So I concur with.
We had thought about other configurations.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Applicant, did you have any?
We had thought about other configurations. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
About other configurations, like just long and narrow, and replacing the existing windows, to get that light in. And this seemed to be the best option to comply with the guidelines of the rental.
So I would just say I concur with Commissioner Epperson's assessment of the situation. I won't be supporting this application. I feel like it pushes a building that's already on the envelope further, kind of closer to being non-contributing. And I'm kind of thinking back to the previous application where you had a home that was covered with, aluminum siding, and instead, and was a rental property, but that owner really is looking towards like, hey, if I'm making changes, I'm marching towards getting the building closer to its historic appearance versus further kind of carrying on a not a non-contributing, but a non-compatible element on the property. So I don't think this meets the standards, and I won't be supporting this application.
Any other commissioners have comments? Commissioner Rackland.
I'd like to hear what Commissioner Beeson has to say, and then I'll comment.
Commissioner Beeson.
I would say I would concur with Commissioner Epperson that the arrangement of the windows as proposed probably does not meet the guidelines, particularly, let me pull up the one I was looking at. From the City of Ann Arbor design guidelines, not appropriate. Changing the number, location, and size or glazing pattern of the windows by cutting new openings, blocking in, or installing replacement sashes, which does not fit the historic opening. So that one's pretty straightforward to me. And then the other one is on the other page, hold on. Windows not recommending, not introducing a new design that is incompatible with the historic character of the building. I mean, that one's kind of weird. This is under the Secretary of Interior standards. But changing the number, location, size, and glazing pattern, same thing as the city guidelines. So I kind of feel like it's a direct alignment with the not recommended based on how it's proposed. So it's kind of hard to look at this and say that it complies with the standards.
But this is so interesting. Question for the group, I guess, because I actually am agreeing with everything that you're saying, but then I also have other thoughts in my head about how I guess maybe I don't know all the information, but are these really the historic openings or not? And so that's sort of my one question I have. And then also, if you install these and then remove them, did anything change? Okay, so here's my question. What if what was proposed was one large window? Does that change your thought process at all? Instead of putting flanking windows, you're just enlarging that window. I mean, I guess if you're thinking that those are the historic openings, then it wouldn't change it at all. If you're thinking that those aren't the historic openings, but it's just the configuration is inappropriate, then maybe it would change the thinking of the yeah.
I replied a little bit to that. So right below that, and the non-recommended for the Secretary of Interior's guidelines says, changing the historic appearance of the buildings to the use of inappropriate designs, materials, finishes, and colors. So to me, adding one large fixed window is also just not an appropriate design for an historic house. I guess we've certainly accepted the triple windows and many other additions to kind of identify it as, hey, this is a new addition or a window that is not historic. So I'm kind of conflicted on that one too, David, honestly, just because, we've got this building that has so much of it that's no longer contributing. But at the same time, it's got some of its form and shape that is still kind of the historic nature of the building. But yeah, I see so much of it that is not contributing in the first place, so I can't get over that part. But just the window application directly just seems like it doesn't, as a window application, does not really fit the guidelines.
What if you changed it to a non-contributing property? What would you do then?
Wow, that's another hypothetical, right?
I'm asking the board, not just one person.
I mean, that's a whole nother scenario.
That is another
Right.
scenario. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I kind of feel like if the building department is willing to work with the applicant and there is a option, i.e. the skylights, which can meet this applicant's needs and, doesn't fly in the face of the standards and the guidelines, I don't think trying to backbend into making this non-contributing is the answer to this particular situation.
Which roof plane would the skylights be? I'm trying to picture skylights. Is it on this front roof plane?
Or is it on the back gable?
Oh, it's up there?
Yeah.
Is there enough? It's hard to tell what's going on with the roof of the addition if there's enough roof plane there, right? I don't know what the daylight requirements are that they're trying to meet for the rental requirements.
I mean, it's hard to design. I mean, trying to design on the fly, looking at photos, but I guess like at the end of the day, for me, this just doesn't, having just one gigantic window at that location, in my opinion, also, I I agree with Commissioner Beeson, would not be appropriate. But that's not what the application is for, you know.
But the skylight, the people have said that, the problem has been that it's leaking. And that's the reason the guy went out of business.
Right, but skylights can be installed properly.
Yes.
Right? With the
They can.
Well, they can.
with the
With the right amount of flashing, yes.
yeah, with the,
But the people that they tried to install them can't do it. It's a rental property. There's revenue lost.
right, but if, as Joel was saying, if there's due diligence made and good effort put forth by the property owner, that the city may be willing to,
Okay.
work with that.
All right.
I mean, I know we're not supposed to be playing designers here, but I keep wondering, the teal house to the left is kind of the sibling of this house that we're reviewing. And I wonder, that side wall window might, it appears that maybe there's more daylight there than the existing windows in the house that we're reviewing. So one thought is kind of leaning on Commissioner Ross's comment, and if work is being done, could work be done that leads more towards restoring what could have been the historic opening there? Could that window size provide enough light, possibly in addition to a skylight, which could be compatible? Would that configuration of openings meet HGC criteria and then also the rental criteria as an option? I know we're not really supposed to be designing here, but those are some of the thoughts I've had on this.
I would agree with, I think that point made by Commissioner Ross, that if we're looking at we're reviewing an application for windows, and there's this question coming up whether or not it's contributing or not contributing. And I think approving something that pushes it more towards non-contributing is not the right way to go. Especially, I think that, that's, our sort of purview as the Historic District Commission is to kind of make sure that any work that is being done is aligning with the structure, especially one that has been assessed to be contributing. We can still have that conversation if we want to go down that route. But I think there's still enough here that puts it in, for me, I think that there's still enough of the character retained in the overall form and shape of what's existing, that it would still fall within the contributing category. And to further the point, the siding could be reverted back to a more historically appropriate siding. The windows could be replaced with more historically appropriate windows. We would review those also through the commission. I think the additional point about, for me, not having the calculations or knowing, what is the exact size I guess, increase that needs to occur to provide the proper light and ventilation. We're kind of just assuming that they're saying that they need these 2 new windows in each room to provide the proper light, but I don't know if I don't have those calculations to fall back on and say, to kind of, balance the appearance and some other alternate options that might be more compatible for this application. Because to your point, Commissioner Keanu, we look at the house next door and you can see that window, we don't know the layout of that house or how large the rooms are, or if it's a bedroom or not. But I think having that information that indicates, this is the bedroom size and this is how much light and ventilation is required and this is how much they're short would be helpful in this particular case.
That was more well
Because
said than what I was describing.
It didn't seem
Thank
like
you.
it. Thank you. Commissioner Beeson.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, okay, so I'm gonna circle back and kind of throw out another postulate here based on what Commissioner Rockland was going down to. So what I'm kind of looking at and trying to think through is, we know that the windows have been replaced. What we don't know is if those are the existing openings, the historic openings. So if we were looking at a house that had non-contributing windows that were installed, non-original windows that were installed in a house in an opening that we don't think is original, we would be okay with whatever they put in there. All right, or at least I would say I would be okay with whatever they put in, with limitation. You know, I think we would probably accept a double hung or even a imitation double hung that had a casement, so it met egress, but that it looked like a double hung. You know, but ones that are straight up looking like a double hung would probably not be okay, because then it, you know, it falls under the guidelines for making sure that it looks appropriate to the rest of the house. So I'm trying to think of it in those terms too. Like, is this an opening that we know for sure is the historic opening? It kind of sounds like it from the staff report that all the windows had just been replaced. All of the 2-sash windows have been replaced by casements, which makes me feel like they just kind of swapped out what was there and put in some casements. So that these are the historic openings. And what we're looking at is taking out these windows and putting in larger openings. And it's kind of a case of that. Like, are we looking at a health, safety, and welfare issue now of where we see applicants come in all the time saying, hey, we need to increase this window size. And a lot of times we're like, okay, but, you know, make sure the window looks okay. Throwing that up.
You know, I think with that, with those reviews, it's still a matter of placement, you know, on if it's on a primary facade, especially on a contributing, then, you know, we scrutinize that much more. I guess, I don't know, Ms. Thatcher, guidelines for replacing windows on a non-contributing structure. Do we have, I was trying to look in our, just the full guidelines packet, if there's anything within that to state, you know, what's appropriate or not appropriate, because even non-contributing structures, we still review for, you know, compliance with particular guidelines for each, you know, feature, even if it's a non-contributing or a new build. So I think in that case, I don't know, I still question, you know, if we're looking at this, I'm getting into hypothetical, so I'm gonna maybe back up and just pose a question. Do we have any additional guidelines for windows on non-contributing structures that we could reference right now, or that think of that?
No, the guidelines for non-contributing structures are,
Same.
they boil down to, they have to be compatible with the existing, with the surrounding neighborhood and not detract from it.
So in that case, I would say that the 2 flanking side light windows, this is not within doesn't match what's already installed on the house. I think, yeah, there's a triple below, but those are equally sized windows on the front and on the first floor, just underneath the windows that are proposed to be changed. And it's not a compatible arrangement for the neighbor.
Yeah, I would agree with that last statement, especially. I was just looking at like street view here, and even though the teal house to the left is the most direct comparison for this home, even the other homes on the street, those side gable elevations have just that single centered window. And that's a feature of the neighborhood, right? So the 3-part window would be in opposition of that.
They can't hear me.
Any additional discussion, commissioners?
I think that if there's a big open question for me is, are these the original openings or not? And the packet does not give that information. So it's very difficult to make a determination for me. I mean, I don't know if, I don't know if that's 100% of solving the puzzle for me, but it's a big portion of the puzzle. If these are the original openings, then that is telling me something. If these are not the original openings, then that is also some very useful information. And since I don't have any information, I sort of have to assume that these are the original openings. That's kind of like what we're saying is we're here representing, if we don't know, then we have to make that sort of fallback assumption. If there was some more information presented to us about what changes were made to the house, there's the double windows on the front, there's the triple windows on the side, it just, the application I feel like is lacking some information that that would help. Maybe not give me all of the answers that I'm looking for, but maybe enough to say that I think maybe that I don't want to make assumptions here and then be wrong about particularly the location of the historic openings. I think that this house is lacking when it comes to character defining features, as I said, but maybe one thing that it does have is the openings. Maybe it doesn't, but without that information, it's difficult to make the call. I guess while I have the floor, I'll also say if we end up with a proposal for skylights on the front facade, that's also, or on the front roof, that's going to be difficult too. So I think that the applicant maybe needs to do some further digging if this doesn't get approved, and just provide more information to us so we can make a more educated decision.
Can we defer this then to, let's say, next month, and they can investigate the skylights and also the positioning, and come back with that information, all the information that David asked about?
So commissioners, just a couple of points to raise. When I talked to Ms. Dell, she indicated that the skylights could probably go behind the little bump on the gable, and that then they would be a staff approval. That was the first thing we looked at. But then when she found out the timeline, et cetera, they switched their thinking to the side light windows. So if that's the case, I can approve skylights, on this rear roof surface as a staff approval, because you're not going to be able to see them from the street, if that's accurate. Another thing is, I did go through the building permit records, the historic building permit files in OnBase, and there are no records of building permits for any work on this house that's substantial, like what we're looking at and what we're discussing. That's not to say there wasn't a permit, that's just to say that there's no longer a record of it if there was a permit. So I can't provide anything on when the addition was built or when these changes might have been made. It certainly wouldn't have been before, it wouldn't have been after the district came into being, which was in the early 80s, I think around 1982. So none of that is helpful, but it's just to say that digging through the sort of logical places where I look, I've not found any additional information that might be helpful.
Commissioner
Question for Ms. Thatcher. So kind of along those lines, excuse me, I was curious if the initial district write-up and for the properties, or maybe the later 2006 work, was there a write-up for each property? Like if we were to look in the records, is there something describing for this particular property what the character defining features were that made it still contributing?
No, there's no write-up in this district. There's no history or description of the structures really. What there is, there would be photographs from 1982, but that's not that old, and I believe the work was done before then. You've got to remember that the Old West Side Historic District originally, until 2006, only reviewed the front 15 feet of the house. So if you go back 15 feet, you could, and this did happen nearby here, you could essentially chop off the house 15 feet deep and then build a new house behind it, because it was called a streetscape district. And then the state came in and said, no, you can't do that. It either has to be a 360-degree review like all of our other historic districts in the state, or it has to not be a historic district. So that's why the commission now looks at an entire property and all the work that's done. But it's also the reason that you see a lot of funky stuff in the Old West Side about 15 feet back from the front of the house. But again, I think that this work was done even earlier than that. And since I have no records of any work that's gone on here in terms of building permits or HDC records, so I really think that it's old-ish work.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Beeson.
Yeah, I'll fall in line here a little bit with Commissioner Rockland, that I don't think we have enough information here to make a good decision either way. And I feel like we've got incomplete information, incomplete drawings, a lot of stuff. And I think it would behoove us to kind of get a better sense of what we are actually understanding the building and all that to make a much more informed collective decision on this. That I think would be a better representation of the historic structures anyway, and do a good service to them in the first place.
So commissioners, what information would you need that would help you make a decision on this window application for sidelights?
I think Commissioner Epperson mentioned some good ones about like what is the actual code requirement, getting an idea of ventilation and light and how much bigger it does actually need to be. That's one good one. Another one that Commissioner Rockland mentioned was, well, are these the historic openings? Can we figure that out or ascertain in some way if these are the historic openings? And if not, if they're not the historic openings, then where were the historic openings maybe? If that's something that we could ascertain from the 82 application or the 82 assessment, that might be helpful. Those are the things that come off the top of my head.
Code requirements I can get, that's no problem. I'm a little skeptical since I haven't found anything on the historic opening so far that we would be able to get that information.
Yeah, I think that code requirements and knowing, seeing a plan, what are the bedroom sizes compared to how it actually needs to meet that requirement. If a skylight is going to be sufficient, it seems like those windows are going to be pretty larger than necessary. So that's my biggest concern.
Okay, keep talking for 1 minute. I'm going to go into the rental housing record to see if I can find it. We have to keep talking.
No, thinking.
Thinking, pondering.
Keep talking, I can do.
I can tell you the room sizes.
You're not on. To reach.
Yeah,
you can.
Hard to say right now.
Yeah.
We still have to work on an application that we can make decisions off of. And I think that's kind of the holdup too. Yeah, for me especially.
I'm just a little bit concerned that if they came back with better drawings of the same proposal, I'm not hearing much support either way for this proposal. I just want to make sure we're not just kicking the can down the road for a month. And
I
that
think
would
that's-
actually be helpful.
In my opinion, that is accurate, that I think the way that the configuration is composed, I still don't think it would meet the guidelines, even with additional information.
I agree. And actually, I would pose this to Ms. Thatcher. So if we postponed, and likely, a bunch of work would have to be done, and the applicant will come back, and there still isn't enough support. I mean, if we just straight up denied it, would that not put the applicant in a better position to move towards the skylight situation? I mean, having a denial in hand versus kind of like, I'm in limbo, rental department.
You still pay another fee. Once this is done, they end up paying another fee for the.
Well, this is actually, yeah.
Staff approval fee, though. The staff approval fee's less.
Staff approval, then we're fine. Yes, that's right. She mentioned that. It's staff.
Right.
approval.
So this is a question, for Ms. Thatcher, just in a general sense. Like, would having a denial in hand make it easier for the applicant to work with the rental inspection department around getting this kind of?
It may buy them a little more time. I mean, since there are different avenues that they could go, they're not going to be totally off the hook or anything with rental housing, because they're trying to go the shorter route rather than the longer route. And if we deny the shorter route, yes, hopefully that would give them more time, but I can't make any promises about that.
Right.
So bedroom number 2 and bedroom number 3 are deficient in terms of natural lighting. Does not have adequate natural lighting. So they have to either pull a building permit to add a skylight or other natural lighting to building 2, and pull a building permit or alter bedroom 3 to meet.
Yeah, and this
Sorry,
is where I
one
kind of fall back on the notion of, are these, like, let's say we had a applicant coming in on existing windows in a historic opening, right? And they are trying to meet health, safety, and welfare application, and they have to increase the size of the window in order to get egress out of there. And I think in those cases, we have approved that in the past, where we've got a window opening that was in a historic opening, and we allowed it to get bigger because they knew that they needed to get egress in there.
But
Typically, it's a minimal increase, usually.
Yeah. And we know the exact dimensions that they need to
Right.
increase it by, because they're like, oh, it needs this many inches.
Well, and there are other options, or there is another option, which is a skylight.
Yeah, and the skylight is certainly preferred in this scenario. It gets it out of any change of the elevations, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the actual number of square inches of additional window, I don't see it in here.
Yeah, I think they would have to do that calculation, unfortunately, for whatever glazing is existing, and then for the table that is required. Probably be on them to figure that out, or a contractor to figure out.
Hang on here, what's this? Okay, natural lighting, bedroom 2, we're talking about bedroom 2 and bedroom 3. Bedroom 2, natural lighting provided 6.975. Natural lighting required 9.2. So they need 2.125. No, 2.325 square feet. That's for bedroom 2. For bedroom 3, it's the same. So both windows are 6.975 square feet right now. And they need to be 9.2 square feet.
The replacement windows are 48 by 14. That's a rough opening unit, but I don't see anything that
Yeah.
indicates what the glazing area is, but that seems like it's.
It's pretty excessive.
Yeah, like if you assume 2 inch, 2 inches for the frame.
Two. Right. If you said 12 by 46 or 45, that puts you close to.
Yeah, I think
the 2 windows in each room are, I think, there's
more than
I
you
think exactly.
right. Yeah.
Need to add 1/3 of the window glazing.
Can we go with the 2 windows then?
Well, you really only need to add 1/3 of the glazing of the existing windows to meet code.
I think as a commission, we need to decide whether or not we think there's enough information to vote on the motion, or if we want to postpone it and request more information, or if the applicant wants to make any modifications to the application, they can do so by the next meeting. That could include that.
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Yes, I am.
You're not down
Okay.
We can hear you,
This is
Claudia.
Let them ask whatever you
So I'm just going by what our contractor said and what the rental people told us what we needed to do, and I didn't personally do any of the calculations. Are we likely to be approved if we just go with 2 windows, or enlarge, do 1 big long window? We just want to get approval on whatever can be approved, so that it can be rented, because right now we can't do that. So whatever we need to do, we'll do. I guess we just need to know. I guess we pursued this avenue because we had the 3 windows on the bottom and we thought those would match with going 3 windows on the top. I don't think they are original windows because they're crank out. And our contractor told us that, the crank out windows they weren't originally in homes. So, that's just kind of what we went with, which is why we proposed that, thinking it would be, more compatible. If we can't do that, and other things that we had looked at was 1 big long window, but we thought that would probably not work. That would stand out more. If the 2 windows would be approved, or 1 larger window would be approved, then we will go that route with the larger window. The teal house next door has 1 larger window, which we could do. We'll just do whatever it is that we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your contractor, or the statement's right that all the windows have been replaced. I think our bigger concern is whether or not that's the original opening, which with the lack of information and any photo documentation we have, we can assume that it's most likely an original opening.
I know.
So
I've been in.
Go ahead.
I know that I've been in the other houses on Marie Avenue, and the interior is laid out very differently than all the other homes, which are, they're all pretty identical inside. there've been modifications, but this house is laid out very differently. So I don't know when, if it's original or if it was changed or, what the situation was. The stairway is in the middle of the house rather than usually you walk in and it's on the right or the left of the other homes. So I don't know. But I know that the windows are crank out.
Yeah, so we know the windows are, like you said, are not original, but the opening could be, right? And that's really our bigger concern is for the Historic District Commission is the
Other than
exterior
that window
arrangement.
is so much smaller than. Other than the other homes on Murray, the original windows are bigger, and this is a small, narrow window. So I think it was, for whatever reason, it was changed. I don't know why they would put smaller windows in rather than keeping the larger ones, but.
So as far as
But we're willing to do whatever can be approved.
Okay. And that's what we're trying to figure out the best
I
course
know,
of
we
action
spent
for
a
you
lot of
and for
time,
this. So I know we want to make sure that, we don't want to hold you up, any more than necessary, but we also want to review the structure for its historic integrity. And I think what I'm hearing
I
from the
appreciate
majority
that.
of the commission is that the arrangement proposed isn't compatible. And we, a skylight would be preferable, would be the most likely easiest approved item. That could be done by Ms. Thatcher. We understand that you've had some issues with a couple of contractors you reached out to. Ms. Thatcher could get some more contractors for you to go if you needed to find additional skylight. But I think as far as the application right now, I think we don't have enough information, and even if we were to ask for a different arrangement, you would still need to come back and propose that. We would still need to look at that again, whether or not what you're proposing for the enlarged, if it's one single enlarged window, whether or not that's appropriate. And if you went to just two, whether or not we think that's appropriate. So I think that's something that we could, sort of maybe hypothetically discuss, or we've already talked about a little bit, but until we see that application, that particular proposal, we're kind of left with two options. Either we deny the application right now as is, or we take a vote and see if it's approved or not approved. The way it's going, I'm not sure. We could be split.
And my husband just wanted
Or,
to say something too.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm Mike Delp. I'm Claudia's husband. Thank you for deliberating this. I really want to plead our case a little bit, please. Very early in the discussion, it was mentioned that this house already pushes the envelope of being a non-contributing house. And it sounds to me like if there were some discussion about whether we're going to stay contributing or non-contributing, that the consensus was leaning toward taking it out of the contributing, the contributing. I'm losing my words.
The non-contributing staff.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if approving our application for two windows on each side would be the tipping point. I mean, it's already out of it's not in this same historical context as the rest of the houses around it. And I think if you look at the windows, I've been on that street a lot. If you look at the windows up and down that street, I'd be willing to bet $1,000 that those windows, those are not the original openings. And I know that you can't make a determination about that because we don't have the facts, and I don't know how we would get those facts. So that's one issue for me. And the other issue is I'm not sure that skylights on the roof would be architecturally pleasing. I would do it if that's what we have to do to comply. But I don't see how they would add to the historical nature of a building that was built in 1913. So I'm really pleading my case. We're trying to please two different organizations in Ann Arbor. The Rental Commission and the Historical Commission is very difficult to navigate between these two entities. And I know that you understand our plight. We're trying to do the best thing and get this behind us. So thank you for your consideration. It's been interesting to watch. Thank you.
Well, whatever your suggestions are, however we need to comply, we'll do it, I guess.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Commissioners, I think we should
Okay,
maybe
thank you.
wrap up the
Thank you.
discussion
I
and
spent a long time on this. Thank you.
see if there's any other last comments or thoughts.
Well, they mentioned one thing. If we decide to make it's a contributing property now. If we decide to make it a non-contributing property and use the specifications that Ms. Thatcher gave us to be that size window, then they would be able to have their rental and it'd be non-contributory. And that's the minimum size it can be and meet the rental board's requirements. We can do all of that tonight.
I don't think that we have enough information to make that assessment.
We do.
I don't think we have enough info.
But we do. She already calculated the information Jill did, what the size of the window needs to be for it meets the rental people's requirement.
Jill calculated it, but I think we need it from the applicant and then what that is going to translate to as an actual installation.
Well, let's defer to next month. Why don't we do that? And then they can come back in with the specification.
Commissioner Rockland.
Well, I mean, I am leaning towards supporting one window that's the minimum size that it can be based on the assumption that those are not the historic openings. So they're not aligned with the gable. They're probably not the historic openings. It's making assumptions, but it's, I guess, based on lack of information, and it's based on what the owner's asking for, and it's based on just the state of the property. If we postpone that, I just want to throw that out there, as I'm leaning toward, I would most likely support something like that if we do postpone that. And so I'm just trying to give the applicant some information as to, if we do postpone, that's what and they don't go skylight route, which seems like the easiest route right now. But if we postpone, I think I would lean towards an application that said these aren't the historic openings, maybe some information as to how you're proving that, and then propose one window on each side that's the minimum.
And I would say that I feel that when it comes to the application of the standards, we really should, it's a slippery slope not to require documentation. I think it's a slippery slope to make assumptions. We open the door and then anybody going forward can just kind of like, well, you made an assumption here, why can't you make one there? So I think if this applicant is asking for something that, I mean, frankly, even if I knew this wasn't the original opening, I would have an issue with it because it's still not in terms of, it would be an incompatible, I don't know. But I would at the very least expect that there's some sort of documentation proposed here. And I still wouldn't, I don't know, would be on the fence.
I agree with Commissioner Ross. But I could also see that, I mean, if there's a window size that's proposed and it's proposed exactly like it's it's 2 inches larger in one direction or 3 in another, 6
Yeah.
inches taller, then that could still, that's a minimal change, but I don't have that information, so I feel like this application needs to be postponed and more information provided. If that's the route. That's probably the most convenient route for this change at this time. Unless a skylight wants to be proposed in lieu of this. So if, Ms. Thatcher, if we are postponing the application, do we need to make a motion to do so? Is there a
I make a
commissioner that would like
motion
to?
that we, go ahead, David.
I move to postpone this application until the next meeting.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Rockland, supported, seconded by Commissioner White. Any further discussion on that? Right, all of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Yes. All of those opposed, please say no. Right. So the application has been postponed to the January meeting. Ms. Thatcher, you can get with applicant and provide additional details as required. Is that correct? Is there any other
Yes.
information we need to provide right now?
I don't think so. Claudia, give me a call. I won't be in the office much tomorrow, but give me a call on Monday, or I will call you and we can go over what it would be helpful for you to provide. Okay. You're on mute, Claudia.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you very
we'll-
much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Of course, thanks for
See you
hanging in
next
there with
month.
us. All right.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
No, thank you for all the time you spent. This has to be a record. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you very much. Right, on to item F8. That's correct. 306 North State Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff?
All right. 306 North State Street is in the old Fourth Ward Historic District. This is a 2.5-story Queen Anne that was constructed circa 1895. It features a half-width front porch with a mansard roof. I'm not sure if the roof is original, but that is the original configuration of the porch, though much has been changed on it. Gable corner returns, cut stone foundation, 1/1 windows and half moon attic windows in each gable. It is on the east side of South State Street, north of Catherine and south of Lawrence Street. And the application is requesting after the fact approval to demolish a single car garage. This is in the application packet. This is a more recent aerial photo. You can see that this is the footprint of the garage that used to be here before it was removed. Then we've got some drawings. Let me quickly jump into some of the staff comments that'll make this a little bit clearer. There was a July 21, 2020 rental housing inspection that noted that a garage on the site was non-compliant in the following ways. It said that the roof must be weather tight and free from leaks, and that the garage roof needed to be repaired, and that the exterior condition must be in good condition, free of rot holes and no more than 15% of surface peeling or chipping or bare. And the details were that they needed to repair the deteriorated garage. There are 3 photos that I'll show you in a minute from that inspection. And in response to this report, the property management company, Cabrio Development LLC, demolished the garage without the required building permit or HTC approval. When asked for more details, Cabrio provided the letter dated 12/1/21 that's attached to the application that's in your packet. This management company has previously done work on this house without permits or HTC approvals. In 2018, staff received a complaint about the front porch guardrail had been replaced. No certificate of appropriateness or building permit had been applied for or approved. And we had to go through all of those after the fact approvals, though those were staff approvals. rather than through the HDC, because they had removed a non-contributing porch and replaced it with a new wooden porch. I did do a search of past building permits, and none were found pertaining to the property. And now I'm going to switch back here. It was a 12 by 16 foot footprint, about 11 feet from the back porch of the house. This car in the foreground is where the garage used to be. You can see there's still a concrete pad there. On one side, there's a little bit of a curb that was left. There was a curb on the other side too, but it seems to have been removed probably to facilitate parking back here. So it's pretty easy to figure out exactly where the garage was. And this is the space between where it used to be and the back porch of the house. This house is a duplex. These are some photos provided by the applicant that show basically the same thing. This was the concrete pad where the garage was. So information on this garage, it has to be sort of pieced together. There's quite a bit of it, but it's in small pieces. These are rental housing inspection photos of the garage. You can see that there was definitely a hole in the roof. And you can see that there is certainly water damage to this roof. The method of construction, the materials used, the type of construction, all is consistent with a garage built during the era that this garage was built in, which is prior to 1925. There was nothing unique about it, but it was present during the period of significance. Here we can see either side of the front automobile opening. There's daylight down here. There's rotting boards. There's, again, some boards missing here as well. I know that these photographs are limited, but this is far from the worst garage case that has ever been through the HDC. I can't tell if this is a window or something leaning up against the wall. We do know that these are the Sanborns in 1925. It's this one right here. The one-story A for automobile garage building was present, wood framing, sorry. Then we move on to the 1931 Sanborn fire insurance map. These used to be two houses on one lot. The lot was divided at some point and they drew the lines right behind this garage. And in 1948, it's still in the same footprint and not much has changed. 1947, we can see the garage there on an aerial photograph. And in 2020, same location. These are from Google Street View, looking back from the other streets. Here's the back of the garage. This is the south elevation, looking from Catherine Street. And you can see that it was very typical, had parapet walls on the sides, sloping roof from front to back, no parapet on the back, shiplap or Dutch lap siding. And this is the view from, this is the view from Thayer Street. It did have a single window and this window is square. That's the only known opening besides the one in the front that appeared to not have any sort of garage doors, leaf doors or a roll-up door or anything on the front. So I'm going to go through a couple of different things since this was removed without previous approvals. Before we get into all that, let's look back at the status of this historic structure and whether or not it was contributing. So it does appear on all three of these Sanborn maps, and the period of significance ends in 1944, and it appears to be in the same location as it was, same materials in 1931 and 1948. It does appear in the 1947 aerial photograph. So presumably the same garage in the same location. There's nothing to indicate from the photographs that it was ever completely rebuilt in the same place. And we know enough about the openings, the structure, the size, the footprint. We don't know the exact height. That would have to be ascertained from photographs like this one. But the design and massing and materials and arrangement are consistent with other Ann Arbor garages built during the same time period. So therefore, this all points to the fact that the garage was a contributing historic structure based on this evidence. So the first thing that the commission will need to consider is whether a certificate of appropriateness is appropriate for this structure. If the HDC believes that this structure was not a contributing historic structure and that the demo work was appropriate, it should consider passing the first suggested motion, which is a certificate of appropriateness. Staff, however, believes that this was a contributing historic structure and therefore it should not receive a certificate of appropriateness because it is not appropriate to knock down a contributing historic structure. The next motion, the next thing that you would have to consider is whether a notice to proceed is appropriate. This is the only way that you can condone inappropriate work within a historic district on a contributing historic structure. I've gone through the staff report. I'm not going to go through it word for word, but I do want to just note that you must meet one of these 4 conditions in order to apply for and receive a notice to proceed. The first one is that the resource constitutes a hazard to the safety of the public or to the structure's occupants. The structure has no occupants, and this is entirely on private property, so the public had no access to it. I would also add that if it is a hazard, that's probably demolition by neglect rather than a hazard that's caused by anything else like an act of God or something like that. So moving on to letter B, the resource is a deterrent to a major improvement program that will be a substantial benefit to the community. This is things like highway programs and major civic demolition programs. This is not really appropriate for a single car garage in a backyard. C says that retaining the resource will cause undue financial hardship. There's no evidence that there's undue financial hardship or that there was a governmental action, an act of God, or other events beyond the owner's control. The property was not put up for sale first. There was no attempt to sell the property and recoup their losses and move on. So that's really not in play here at all. And the last one is that retaining the resource is not in the interest of the majority of the community. And the city of Ann Arbor created the Old Fourth Ward Historic District to preserve historic structures built before 1945. Since this was a historic structure, its retention was therefore intended by the majority of the community. So D does not apply as well. So then we move on to, well, let me read you the Secretary of Interior standards that apply to this property the best. The historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of feature spaces and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. I believe that the work that was done is in direct contrast to this standard. Number 6 standard says deteriorated historic features will be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement, the new feature will match the old in design, color, texture, and where possible materials. Replacement of missing features will be substantiated by documentary and physical evidence. Well, it should have been repaired rather than replaced, but since it's no longer there, then we move on to it needs to be replaced and it needs to match the old in design, color, texture, and where possible materials. The guidelines for district or neighborhood setting recommend replacing in kind an entire feature of the building that's too deteriorated to repair, using the physical evidence as a model to guide the new work. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for residential accessory structures, it's appropriate to maintain and restore historic barns, garages, sheds, trellises, and other accessory structures to match the historic materials and configuration. So And Ann Arbor City Code just says that when work has been done without a permit and the commission finds that the work does not qualify for a certificate of appropriateness, the commission may require an owner to restore the resource to the condition that resource was in before the inappropriate work. So if the commission decides that a certificate of appropriateness is not appropriate and that a notice to proceed is not appropriate, then we would move on to a motion to order reconstruction. And that is, there's a suggested motion for that as well. The garage was a historic feature of the site, the neighborhood, and the Old Fourth Ward Historic District. Replacing the garage with one that matches the old in design, color, texture, and materials meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, in particular Standard 6 and the guidelines for building sites. Where details like trim are unknown, they should be installed in a simplified style that is appropriate for a garage built before 1925. So staff is asking that the commission go through all three of the possible motions in order. Starting with the certificate of appropriateness and then moving on to notice to proceed and then moving on to a motion to order reconstruction. That is everything that I have for the staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about all of this. This is a lot of information. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there a review committee meeting for this?
Yes, we did meet at the property, and I mean, this photo tells you, tells you everything that we saw. That the structure was in fact demolished. There was a little bit of that curb left and some portions of the slab that were there, but not a whole lot to look at. And reading through the staff report, I think it's pretty thorough there, and I tend to agree with the position that's being proposed.
I don't have anything to add to that. I think we can move on.
Right. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to speak. If you have anything you'd like to add to staff.
Deshaun, turn that down. All I can say is that one up.
I think what's going on here is, Deshaun, it looks like you are logged in twice to the meeting. I'm going to allow you to talk on the other one and see what happens. Okay, Deshaun, can you try unmuting again and talking?
No.
No, still bad. Deshaun, since you're in the meeting twice, I think you have to log out of one of them. You have to leave the meeting with one of them. You have a D Blaylock, which I think is you, and also a Deshaun. Okay, now we're down to one. Let's see what happens.
Sean, unmute.
Okay, so I've got Deshaun and Erica Hall. You're both muted.
I'm unmuted now.
There you are. Yay, there's Erica. Yay. Erica, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, the only thing, well, Erica Hall, 41021 Old Michigan Ave, Canton, Michigan. The only thing that I would like to add is that, I mean, when we did that, it was a little bit of a safety hazard. We're in a student housing area. They were gathering in there. It was a decision that, in looking in hindsight, may have just been done prematurely. But it was information that we had received back, not knowing that we needed a permit for demo, only a permit to rebuild. And, it was done with thought in mind of safety. I do know that when the decision was being made and they were kind of discussing what to do, that was a factor in the decision.
Sean, are you able to unmute? Okay, we're gonna move on to the, first, are there any questions for the commissioners for Erica? We can circle back and see if Deshaun can figure out any kind of technical issues he's having, but I can open the public comment and circle back if you'd like, or if you have any questions for Erica, we can take them now. Let's see. Deshaun, if you still have anything you'd like to add, if you probably are working on it, but if you want to try disconnecting and calling back in, or figuring out which device is best to make any comment on, please do so. Commissioner Rockland.
This may be a question for staff or the applicants. Just to be clear, I know there's like an order that we have to go through here, but is the application, are the applicants in this application asking for approval to demo this garage, or are they asking for approval to rebuild the garage as is? Or like what is like what's the headline here? Is it's approval to demo the garage?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I'm going to open the public hearing portion. So this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on 306 North State Street. Please indicate you'd like to talk by pressing *9 on your phone, or using the icon indicated to raise your hand. Like there's maybe somebody indicating.
Hello?
Hello.
We have one caller.
Yeah, hi, this is Brian. I'm one of the inspectors that was the initial inspector on the property.
Hey, Brian. Can you just state your full name and address for the record?
Yeah, Brian Cobb, Grass Lake, Michigan.
Are you calling for public comment, or are you part of the application team?
I'm part of the application.
Okay.
So I work in the department for inspections for Cabrio Properties. So I met with the inspector that day, and we did the full inspection of the property, the house, and including the garage. When we met at the garage, as you saw in the pictures, it had the big hole in the roof. The rest of the roof, which was a flat roof, was pretty well rotten. So there wasn't much salvage in that itself. Then, as you saw in the front, there was no door in the front, no framework, nothing at all that would make it look like there could have been a door put back up. Same thing with the foundation. The foundation, except for the left front that you saw in the picture, was all gone and rotted away. So there wasn't much left even of the foundation. Even the floor that you saw, the concrete floor, was still there, but was in disrepair. So we talked about it. All of us talked about it, and the inspector gave us two choices: to repair it, which we knew would cost lots of money, or to tear it down and get rid of it. There wasn't any comment or anything from the inspector that day as pulling a permit just for demo, or anything else that would make us think twice. So the choice made was to demolish it and move on. For safety reasons too, like we talked about.
Brian? Are there any commissioners that have any questions for Brian?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, when you know, all the inspections I do throughout our property and stuff, our safety is the first option that we look at most times, to make sure that people are going back and forth from that back porch to their car, truck, whatever. And, you know, if that fell down, then who's responsible? We are. So we felt at this point that it would be good to demolish it for safety reasons and go from there. Now, if we'd known that we needed a permit to demolish something, then we certainly would have done that. But at that point, the inspector for that day did not say anything along those lines.
Commissioner Quijano?
Couple questions for the applicant team. I don't know who would know the answer to this, but I'm just curious if kind of, well, one, how long has Cabrio owned this specific property? And also, does Cabrio own other properties within the Old Fourth Ward Historic District or other historic districts in Ann Arbor?
So this is Erica. With this particular property, we manage the property. So a lot of our properties we manage for property owners. So we're not the sole owner. So what, you know, whenever we do our city inspections, whenever we do, you know, any work on any of the homes, that is a consideration as well, as whether or not we're acting in the best interest of, you know, the property owner in terms of cost, you know, because we know, you know, their financial state, different things like that. And then just the situation at hand, as in this case, it was more about the issues we have been having coming up to that with students gathering in there, us, you know, keeping them from gathering, the condition of it, the discussion that was had with Brian and the inspector on that day. Those were a lot of the things that we took into consideration.
Has Cabrio been the property manager for this property for a number of years or just recently?
You know what, I will say that I want to say it's within the last 2 to 3 years, maybe 4, because as long as I've been with the company, I'm not sure that this property was there when I started back in 2018, but I believe it was acquired somewhere along the way, maybe 2019. I'd have to really look at the records, but I don't know that we've had this property more than a couple years.
Okay, and do you manage other properties in other Ann Arbor historic districts?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess just kind of following on to the last kind of tranche of questions, in those properties which you own in other historic districts, is Cabrio aware of the requirements and the need to get approval before the work on the exterior is done?
For a lot of our other properties that have been within the historic district, it really hasn't come to that. As far as I know, I mean, like I say, I would really kind of have to look back, but this is not a regular occurrence for us. Like, we're not regularly placed in a position of having to determine whether or not it's in a historic district. Most of the things that we have are not within that district. So we do have other homes, but they're not all there. So I don't know how much construction or how much work has actually had to be completed on some of the other properties.
But on this one in particular, staff noted that some previous work had been done at the front porch without approval, and staff had to approve it after the fact. So was that like, wouldn't that have been kind of like oops?
Yeah, that was it. That situation there, I know that happened a while back. I don't remember the circumstances offhand for that, but I do know that there was an issue with that porch, with the safety of the porch, but I'm not really sure at what time frame, and as far as us acquiring that versus when that work was done.
But it's clear now. Hopefully, Cabrillo understands that any work on the exterior has to be approved first by the commission. That's pretty clear at this point.
Okay. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of getting information as we're speaking, but we actually did not do the handrail work. So that was not work that we actually completed. That was prior to us.
Right.
Is that what's presented in the staff report?
I'll pull it up and check while you guys are talking.
But I guess what I'm just noting is going forward, it's clear to Cabrillo now that, hey, any exterior work has to be approved by the commission first.
Yeah.
I think just to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Great.
if you're unsure if a property is in the historic district or not, eTrack is pretty much a great tool to use. Even if you're not sure what you're going to do, if it's going to be exterior or not, on eTrack it lists whether or not a project's in the historic
Yes,
district.
like I said, this
So
was
you
a
can know.
huge learning experience. Yeah, like seriously, I mean, it really was, because it like none of this was like, if we had known this, we would have done it, because we want nothing more than to comply with whatever we need to in order to stay in compliance with city codes, ordinances. So if we would have known that, we would have followed the proper channels. This was definitely not a situation of trying to evade that process. It was just, we didn't know. And so this is a huge learning opportunity for us.
So what are our procedures next? What do we need to do here?
So let me, if there's no other questions for the applicant, I will open the public hearing portion. Doesn't look like anybody else is raising their hand for comment. Just again, callers, if you have anything, if you would like to make a comment on for 306 North State Street, please press *9 on your phone or indicate Zoom screen that you would like to make comment. Alexis, are there any callers indicating they'd like to?
There are not.
Okay, so I will close the public hearing portion. I think the next steps, if I'm correct, Ms. Thatcher, is we need to go through each of the motions individually that have been presented here.
Yeah. Just to be clear, guys, I did look at those. There are two applications from Cabrillo in 2018, one for a roof and one for the front porch. Same owner, same property management. But I know that Erica was not involved in that one. And I don't recognize Deshawn's name either.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a commissioner that would like to make a motion.
Make a motion.
Noting.
Notice to proceed. I move that the commission issue a notice to proceed for the application at 306 North State Street to demolish the wood frame garage behind the house as proposed. The commission finds that the resource constitutes a hazard to the safety of the public to the structure occupant and demolishing the necessary to substantially improve or correct the condition.
So if I'm correct, we need to go in order, starting with certificate of appropriateness.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bob.
Motion first.
You can't do the notice to proceed until you've determined that it's inappropriate. So you got to do the certificate of appropriateness one first.
You got through all that. Do you want to read the first one, Bob?
No, I don't want to read the first one because I want to be in product. We're going to end up at the notice to proceed. Go ahead. Get someone else.
Commissioner
I'll read
Beeson.
it. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the after-the-fact application at 306 North State Street, a contributing property in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District, to demolish a non-contributing garage. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design arrangement, materials, in relationship to the building and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for residential accessory structures and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2 and 6 and the guidelines for building site. And I guess I have a question on the language in there that says that it's demolishing a non-contributing structure. I thought staff had mentioned that they felt it was contributing.
Because you will vote
Right.
against this then.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But
So it's
someone
moved
needs
by
to second
Commissioner
it.
Beeson,
I'll second
right?
it. Did someone second it? I'll say.
No,
Second.
moved by Commissioner Beeson, seconded by Commissioner Rockland. Their discussion on the motion, Commissioner Rockland.
I think that based on the staff report, based on the information that is provided in the sandboard maps, in the photographs, it does seem to me that this is was a contributing structure. So I don't think that the certificate of appropriateness is valid in this case.
I would agree with that statement. I think the evidence is pretty clear that it was contributing.
So we can vote on this motion? All of those in favor, please say yes. All of those opposed, please say no.
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 And on to the second motion, the notice to proceed.
I move that the commission issue a notice to proceed for the application at 306 North State Street to demolish the wood frame garage behind the house as proposed. The commission finds that the resource constitutes a hazard to the safety of the public or to the structure occupants, and that as demolition was necessary to substantially improve or correct the condition.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Rockland. Ms. Thatcher. You're on mute.
Sorry. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay. Just to be clear, I had to choose one of the 4 conditions, and this one seemed the closest to their reasons for demolition, which was that it's deteriorated. That's all.
Commissioner Beeson.
Yes, we also have an issue here of demolition by neglect. It certainly hasn't been addressed prior to any earlier ownership as well as current ownership. So even despite a inspection coming out to kind of highlight any safety concerns, it's a wonder to me how this building got so far along in its condition as it is now.
I agree.
And I would just follow that by saying I agree with staff's analysis. In my opinion, I don't think this application meets any of the 4 prongs for the notice to proceed. Although the building may have been in poor condition, the demo wasn't necessary. I mean, to correct it doesn't appear that the demo was necessary to correct those conditions. I mean, it appears that it could have just have been repaired. So, well, I mean, and unfortunately, the applicant's at a disadvantage because the building's knocked down now. So We just have to go by the information that we have in front of us.
I agree with Commissioner Ross and with staff's report on all 4 items.
Agreed.
Commissioner Beeson, I was going to ask if everybody's ready for vote, but want to make sure you're still there. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no.
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 We have one additional motion. Is there a commissioner that would like to read the last motion? Commissioner Beeson.
I move that the commission finds that the demolition of the garage at 502 North State Street does not qualify for a certificate of appropriateness, and that the property owner is ordered to reconstruct the garage to be substantially the same as it was before demolition, with all permits finalized or finaled by June 9th, 2022. A new Historic District Commission application for the reconstructed garage will be required with the building permit application and will be reviewed by staff with input from the officers of the Historic District Commission.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Beeson, seconded Commissioner Quijano. Discussion on the motion? Trying to go back to some of our guidelines here, but if anybody has any comments. I think it's pretty clear that, we don't have extensive photo documentation, but as was stated, we have Sanborn maps, there's Google images, there's images from the inspection that indicate that the garage is intact, and though it was deteriorated, it doesn't seem that it was completely deteriorated beyond repair. From the Secretary of Interior standards, and 6, deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced, where severity of deterioration requires replacement of distinctive features, the new shall match the old. I think that we've seen a number of garages come through recently where we've reviewed extensively repair worse than this, where we've asked that it be repaired and replaced. I don't think that this one with images I've seen is any different. I think that this should be rebuilt. And I think it's also clear in the, the interest of the community. It's part of garages are included in contributing structures. It was intact. It hadn't been modified. It's just had been neglected and deteriorated.
I also think that at a minimum, a permit for demolition, which is also needed, an application for that would have hopefully triggered in the planning department that the HDC would have needed to review this as well. So even if it wasn't known to the applicant or that it was in a district, at least permit from the regular building department procedures would have been in line.
Any additional comment, Commissioner?
I just will say that, this is this is an unfortunate application. It just, obviously what happened was unfortunate, and it brings us to this situation we're in now, but just getting, the owner maybe being misguided by, someone who they were working with is unfortunate, but then also, whatever happened several years ago at the front porch, is also unfortunate. So it just seems like this property has just not had a great time in the historic district. But maybe this, the rebuilding of this garage, can be an opportunity to just reset. And you're in the historic district. It sounds like you're going to get a motion to reconstruct this garage, and I just hope that it's an opportunity to start fresh and build this garage and just engage with the district that your property is in. So I hope.
But if I can say one last thing before you, if I could say one last thing before, the handrail was something that that's when we acquired the property. So we didn't pull the permits for that. We didn't, like, we received it that way. So had we kind of known more about that process at that time, we would not have made the same, the same determination. But that handrail was not our work. It wasn't something that we put permits on or something that we initiated. This is just pretty much how we received the property. And our name is only attached to anything of that because of that reason, because we kind of acquired it at that time and changed over management companies.
Additional comments, commissioners? We're ready for a vote. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All of those opposed, please say no. See, you've been ordered to reconstruct the garage as originally designed per the, I'm looking for the language that Ms. Thatcher had.
So I will.
Okay, go ahead.
I will inform rental housing and the building department of this order and the city attorney's office, and then the applicants will need to apply for a building permit with drawings. I'll run the drawings by the officers of the HDC to make sure that they, are reasonably in character for a garage of this age and from the evidence that we have. And then the garage will need to be permitted, built, and have final inspections by June 9 of 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Move on to the next item, item F9. This application for 113 West Washington has been postponed to the January meeting. We need to do public hearing. So I will open a public hearing for 113 West Washington. If there's anybody that would like to speak on this application, please press *9 on your phone or indicate that you'd like to speak, raising your hand. Do we have any callers? Okay.
There's no one indicating so far.
Okay. I do need to have a commissioner make a motion to postpone this application. So if I could get a commissioner to do so. Commissioner Beeson.
I move that the application F9 for 113 West Washington Street be postponed to the January HDC meeting. Someone needs to second it.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Beeson, seconded by Commissioner Racklin. All of those in favor of the motion, say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no. The application at 113 West Washington has been postponed. Item F10, 120 West Washington has also been postponed. We'll open the public hearing for I said 110, it's 120 West Washington. Do we have any callers for 120?
There is no one to speak at this public hearing.
Okay. Close the public hearing. And again, I would like another commissioner Beeson.
I move that the item F10 application for 120 West Washington Street be postponed to the January meeting of the HDC.
Support. By Commissioner Beeson, seconded by Commissioner Quijano. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Right, this application has been postponed to the January meeting. And for item F11, 112, 114 West Liberty. This item has also been postponed. We'll open the public comment for 112, 114 West Liberty. Don't believe we have any callers.
We do not.
I will close the public hearing portion. Will the commissioner please make a motion to postpone this application? Mr. Beeson,
I move that item F11, the application for 112 to 114 West Liberty Street be postponed to the January meeting of the HTC.
Second.
moved by Commissioner Beeson, seconded by Commissioner Ross. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All of those opposed, please say no. The motion has carried. The 112, 114 has been postponed to the next HCC meeting in January. Is it for the hearings? On to new business G. Believe we have any new business. Item H, approval of minutes. So we should have received minutes for August 12th and October 14th. Commissioners, take a few minutes just to review if there's any questions or comments. We're still looking. Anybody see any exceptions taken to either of the minutes? The minutes are approved as presented for the August 12th and the October 14th Historic District Commission. To item I, reports from commissioners. Do any commissioners have any reports they'd like to share with the commission? Seeing any? On to item J, assignments. This will be for the January meeting. Is that on the 13th?
Yeah, January 13th. So review committee is January 10 at noon.
Actually will not be able to make that meeting. This is at noon, correct? It's January.
Yeah. Yeah. I know Commissioner Beeson is not available, and I'll explain why in a
Right.
moment. Anyone else?
I mean, I could do it if no one else is available.
Commissioner White, you available? I haven't seen your face on a review committee in a while.
Well, not for a while. No, I'm not available.
Okay.
I'm going to be running the meeting, so I don't know if it's good to have me on the review committee or not, or if that, I mean, it's fine with me, but
Yeah, you'll be fine.
it's a lot of me talking to me.
Commissioner Fortner is available.
I can ask Kathy if she's available. Yeah.
I guess.
Thank you, Commissioner Rockland.
Sorry, I was muted. Jill, I can be TBD on that. Or if Commissioner Fortner can't make it, I just don't have things confirmed just yet.
Okay, I will ask Kathy first and then approach you if you can't do it.
Put a placeholder just in case.
All right, thank
Commissioner
you.
Rockland, and we have a couple ladies. On to item J, October and November staff activities.
Yeah, tell me if you see anything you have questions about. Whole lot of gas meters.
Yeah.
Seen anything?
I can launch into reports from staff while you look.
Sure, go for it.
So in January, we are going back to in-person meetings. We will meet in city council chambers, and everyone in City Hall must be masked. All visitors and commissioners and staff attending meetings. So wear your masks, wear your double masks if you'd like. If people can't hear us through our masks, then someone else is going to have to figure out how to take care of that. I'll be wearing a good one. So it'll be like the old days again. And City Council and Planning Commission are going to have public commentary via Zoom. We are not, because we have very little public commentary beyond our applicants. And it's a technological, thing to have to deal with during a meeting. So we have not been authorized to do that, and I don't think that it's necessary at this time. I will personally make sure that chairs are spaced and people aren't all sitting on top of each other, and that we can do as much to spread out as we can. We can use that entire front podium area. We only use it like less than half of the chairs, so we can all space out away from each other, and we will do our best to keep everyone as safe as possible. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about that's even more important is that Commissioner Beeson is resigning. He's leaving the commission on January 1st. And he's been with us a long time and has been an awesome member.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yes, 9 years.
And we're going to miss you.
Just flew by.
Miss you, John.
Thank you very much
Yeah.
for your excellent, outstanding work all those years.
Indeed.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
I remember when I started on the commission, I was one of the youngest. And now I feel like next to Bob, I'm one of the oldest.
You're not even close.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's like, don't forget about me, John. I'm kind of up there too.
Still think I might be the oldest.
Oh, I don't know.
I'll let you pretend that.
We
Yeah.
don't need to reveal ages here.
not on screen. Yeah, but I appreciate everyone's time on this. It's been a great learning environment, and of course, it's been kind of a proud thing to serve on. And I think it's what we're doing here is a great thing. So keep it up.
You too.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
The
Well, we'll
good
miss
80s
your
promotions.
words of wisdom here on the commission, but you're still out there in the community. So
Yes. Yeah.
So now you can call in for public comment.
Yeah, I can't wait.
right. No, it's got to be in person.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I got to show up.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for all your time. It's nice to serve with you, and I learned a lot from you personally. So thank you.
Oh, well, great. Thank you.
I'll echo that comment. I feel like I learned a lot from watching you be a commissioner. So thanks for that, Commissioner Beeson, and good luck.
Thank you very much. And, there's definitely a lot to be said for watching the commissioners ahead of me, where I learned a lot from them as well. So just keep passing it on.
Good.
All right. Any other reports, Ms. Thatcher?
No, that's it for me.
Okay. No comments I take for the staff report. On to item N, communications.
I had a concern, just a quick one. We skipped November, and I just wanted to hear like a quick, how did that work for everyone? And is that precedent setting for the future? Should we think about doing that again, or just a quick, like it was horrible or it was great? I'm just curious, mostly from Jill.
That was because of a scheduling issue with the election and having to put off the meeting by like 2 weeks. And at that point, why not just skip the meeting and go on to the next one, that sort of thing. So it was out of necessity. I don't know if you guys are interested in making that a thing or not.
Got it.
Does it cause a
Yeah.
huge backlog for December? Or, I mean, I
It
don't know how you
actually
really
didn't.
avoid that.
I think it would have been a small November meeting anyway. Most of these applications would not have been ready for September anyway. So we kind of lucked out in that respect. I'm sorry, not September,
November.
November. We kind of lucked out because this meeting could have been a lot worse.
Got it.
It's a good question. I was wondering the same thing, if there was any kind of issues from skipping a meeting.
Yeah, I don't recommend it normally, but if we don't have any applications, of course, I don't want to drag you out for no reason unless there's something pressing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Were there any other concerns of commissioners? I did skip over that.
Well, we're going to be down a commissioner.
No.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Oh,
We
okay.
might not be for long.
Oh, nice. Exciting.
Before we adjourn, everybody, don't forget that there is a working session. Maybe the chair could call for a 5-minute break or something.
Yes. So following this, there will be a working session, but I think we could take a 5-minute break in between that. So I will now adjourn the December 9th, it's 2021 HDC meeting, but please stay logged in and come back in 5 minutes.
Okay.